Monday, November 20th, 2023. We are having our first in-person meeting since our swearing in on June 5th. So glad to have everybody here. We did experience some technical issues getting set up since it's been a while since we've done this, and we're trying to make it possible for people online to participate and observe, but also for all of us to be sitting in a room together and talking to each other as well. We do have not only a quorum present, but we have all of the members present. As far as remarks go, I just wanted to acknowledge that three people who either have three of our staff members who either have left or have or are about to leave our staff. Artie Chumble retired recently, and we thank her for her service. Bobby Payne, who is about to complete her 27th year working with what were then called absentee ballots and are now called mail-in ballots, is retiring at the end of November, and we thank her for her service. And just recently we were told that Deputy Director Allison McLaughlin, who served as the acting director in 2020, is that right? Or 2021? 2021.
2022.
All right, I'm getting my years mixed up. I apologize. Who served as acting director in 2022 and has served as deputy director since 2012. And we appreciate her service, and we'll have more to say at our December meeting about her.
Wait, is your camera on?
Yeah, you're not on camera.
Oh, that's interesting. How did that happen? Because my camera is working. All right, let's try this. All right.
There.
Yes. So the extra special camera apparently doesn't always work. Thank you for letting me know about that. Okay. As far are there additions or changes to the agenda? We are going to have an executive session today to discuss a budgetary matter that is a pre-decisional budgetary matter and possibly a personnel matter. Any other additions or changes to the agenda? Okay, does anybody have a campaign contribution or attendance at a fundraising event to report? Okay, seeing none, we will go to public comments. Lisa, what do we have for public comments?
Well, Mr. President, we had Mr. Michael Fletcher who requested to address the board. He is not in the room at this moment, but his comments were submitted.
Yeah, he is attending virtually, and if he would like to address us virtually, that would be fine. Jerry, if you could promote Mr. Fletcher, that would be great.
He is.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
We can hear you. Would you like to turn on your camera, Mr. Fletcher?
Certainly.
Okay. Please proceed.
Thank you very much. I have three comments for the board to consider. Number one, in October, a Public Information Act request was submitted to the Montgomery County Board of Elections for copies of reports that are generated by the electronic tabulators that are used in our elections. These reports are system logs and error logs that document the machine setup and performance. I have not received a response to this request, but I am aware that several counties have said that these reports are not available. I would like to draw the attention of the board to Maryland Administrative Code, section 33.10.01.02, which says that the reports requested in the PIA are created in the election reporting manager, which collects and tabulates votes from the tabulators and produces various result reports and audit logs. In section 33.10.01.03, it says that changes to hardware and software or firmware are documented in internal audit logs and shall be capable of being printed. This section also states that for auditability purposes, the tabulators shall provide cast vote records and an audit log of alerts to voters and tabulator events and errors. In the past, cast vote records have been provided in response to PIA requests. The records requested in the current PIA are generated in the same manner as cast vote records and should be available for public review. Therefore, the claim that these reports are not available for production under a PIA request is false. Comment 2. At the October board meeting, I presented information about the large number of blank ballots that were cast in Montgomery County in 2020 and 2022. Since then, the State Board of Elections has tried to change the definition of blank ballot in order to justify these very large numbers. However, the new definition that a blank ballot is actually a page of a ballot is in conflict with the definition of a ballot provided in election law, section 9-203. The term ballot from the voting operating judge training booklet for the 2022 primary, and even the definition provided in the ES&S tabulator manuals. Mr. Brekovic provided information from the manual audit of the 2022 election, which compiled blank votes in addition to ballots cast for various races in several precincts. However, when the numbers of blank votes is
15 seconds left.
Okay. When that number is compared to the EL 52 report from the tabulators, the numbers do not match. The tabulators have many more blank ballots than the hand audit. All right.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fletcher. I'm going to call on Boris Brekovich if he has anything he'd like to say. Or actually, no, I'm going to call on Kevin Karpinski.
You need to unmute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
So, Mr. Fletcher, I had submitted your request to the state board. I was under the impression that there were no responsive documents to your request. Did you not hear from the state?
Other counties have heard from the state, but I haven't seen anything directly from state on that. I was really looking for something from Montgomery County. So what you're saying is I should look for a response from the state board for that.
I think you should, and if you don't, please email me and Mr. Brockovich, and we will go ahead and follow up to see what we can do to fulfill your MPIA request.
All right, I will do that.
Thank you.
By the way, comment number 3 that I had was happy Thanksgiving to the board and the staff.
Thank you.
We appreciate that. I'm just going to add one more comment from myself, and that is that I'm aware, Mr. Fletcher, from your comment about the question of what is a blank ballot. I would have to look and see what the law says a blank ballot is. But I can tell you, as one who sat through the canvass, that it's highly unlikely that we had as many blank ballots as was said, but much more likely that we had blank pages, because we are familiar with lots of ballots where people don't vote every page. but the number of ballots where people don't vote anything is much less, at least in my experience. So, Boris, did you have anything you wanted to say?
And just to add, Mr. Fletcher, there is a very brief explanation that was prepared by the state, and we were expecting the state to have it on their website, an explanation of what a blank ballot is and calculating. I did check yesterday, didn't see it on their rumor control website, but let me see after this meeting if it's there. If not, I'll be more than happy to email it to you.
Very good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Fletcher. We appreciate your joining us virtually this afternoon.
Thank you.
Yes. Ms. Marino, do we have any other requests for public comment? Okay, well, seeing no other requests for public comment, we will move on to the election director's report. Mr. Brajkovic.
Thank you. Let me just go through the report that was prepared for today's meeting. At the very beginning, draft minutes distributed to the board on November 13th. Agenda was distributed and posted on the website on November 14th, and all the director's report and all the documents for the meeting were shared with the board on November 16th as established practices. When it comes to the action items from the last board meeting, let me just address two of them. Blank ballots from a ballot marking device. The issue was raised by the Vice President, Mr. Daniel Koroma. We reached to the state. If a ballot marking device issues one card that contains all the pages of the ballot itself. If you recall, for the last elections, we had a three-card ballot with 6 pages. Still, they would appear as a one on a ballot marking device. Ballot marking device coding selection would still be separated into pages. So if you skip on ballot marking device, all the contests that are on a page of the ballot, it will be counted as a one blank one. So.
Mr. President, yeah, so just
Go ahead.
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much for the information, for getting the information. If I understand you correctly, that it will be in separate pages, but it'll be part of one.
So all the contests selected on ballot marking device card come out on one card.
One card. Okay.
However, they come in order in which they appear on the ballot itself.
Okay.
And if all the contests that would appear on one card on a full ballot that voters get at the polling place are blank, it will be counted as a blank card or blank ballot.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Okay. All right. Thank you for that.
Presentation is in order. You have to go look for the contests that appear on the same ballot.
Thank you for that.
The second request from the board was to find more information about 2 untimely ballots that were presented at the last board meeting. I have to report to the board that I met with the postmaster last Friday. So when I have more information, hopefully for December meeting, I'll share with the board. So they will do inquiry on their end. Director's report contains next paragraph is voter registration statistics, indicating that there were a bit over 680,000 registered active voters as the end of October in Montgomery County, 64,389 inactive voters for the total of 744,765 both active and inactive voters on our voter rolls. When it comes to the State Board of Elections, Montgomery County Board of Elections approved early voting sites, polling places, and drop box locations. Staff has forwarded all the approved locations and sites to the State Board with the necessary documentation, and we expect that 14 early voting sites approved by the board will be on the State Board of Elections agenda on November 30th this year. Municipal elections, recently both Rockville and Gettysburg had their municipal elections. As usual, staff provided a team to process, canvass, scan, and tabulate Rockville's mail-in and provisional ballots. And we had an MOU with Rockville to lease them some of the equipment that they could use for their own elections. When it comes to Gettysburg, our support was limited to providing the voter registration lists to Gettysburg Board of Elections and processing their provisional ballots that they brought back. When it comes to personnel, there's some activity in this area as we're getting closer to the end of the year. So two successful candidates that were selected for office service coordinator position with voter registration will start on December 4th. We have completed interviews for program manager, voter services position, my previous position, and the process was, candidate was selected and process was taken over by the county office of human resources. So we expect that onboarding to happen soon as well.
Do you have a sense as to when?
Our goal was December. I don't know how which
December 4th.
pay period overlaps. It has to be beginning of the pay period, right? This is one of those HR rules that
Yes.
I go along what Lisa tells me.
We're
on this one.
hopeful for December 4th.
Okay.
We are interviewing for remaining IT Tech 2 positions tomorrow, and 2 positions will be advertised, or the process has been initiated. Lisa submitted the paperwork for the county's OHR. One is the position that Ms. Artie Chambal retired, which is candidate filing, and another position is like a voter education training specialist position that will be going with us going forward. When it comes to the temporary positions, we are already conducting interviews to try to identify temporary personnel for the upcoming elections. Even though onboarding of those successful candidates is not imminent, some of them will start, some in December, but majority January through March. We would like to start this process as early as possible because there is medical and background checks. Takes time, especially over the holiday period. So we're trying to play to be ahead of the game as much as possible in this area. When it comes to budget, we have shared the budget overview with the board. Previously, every time we shared the same document, it would reflect day or two before the board meeting. The board will notice that we are trying to change that practice to cover the calendar month. So we will be able to do month-to-month comparisons over the years. Now we are more or less dependent on the date of the board meeting. So we will stick to the calendar month, and all the data would be still in there, just covering more precisely time period. When it comes to section activities, water services, this is the part of our ongoing daily activities, list maintenance, updating voter registrations, registering new voters. The data is still coming from different sources like DH, Jury Commission course, or ERIC, plus everything that comes from the voters themselves. As I mentioned earlier, voter registration was responsible for processing provisional ballots for Rockville and Gettysburg for their municipal elections. Mail-in voting team was responsible for bringing on a temporary team to help canvass and process and canvass Rockville mail-in ballots. And when it comes to candidate filing, we only have 2 candidates that filed so far with us, and we shared necessary documents with another 3 who expressed interest. We expect that higher number of candidates will start submitting their documentation as we enter year 24. Just submitting documentation this year would mean that they will still to renew their financial input again in 24. So it has to be submitted to every calendar year that you have active filing on the books. When it comes to IT section, as I mentioned earlier, we are still working with our colleagues with the colleagues from Technology Enterprise Business Solutions to implement the replacement system for election workers and future vote portals. We have completed updating the software for the poll books that will be used in 2024, and the maintenance that had to be completed on them as well. IT permanent and temporary staff was responsible for scanning and tabulating election ballots and producing the results for Rockville municipal elections. When it comes to operations section, I would like to bring to board's attention an issue that was mentioned at the last board meeting, and that's the fact that May 14th was a date scheduled for AP testing in Montgomery County, but MCPS found a way to move that date so it doesn't overlap with the primary elections. However, MCPS was not able to move the date of IB testing that was scheduled on the same day. The idea was to organize testing in two clusters, one for the southern part of the county in Bethesda Chevy Chase High School, and one for the northern part in Watkins Mill High School, with both locations being used by Board of Elections as a polling places. We met with MCPS, and I believe that we found a solution that works for everyone, according to which we will stay in Bethesda Chevy Chase High School as originally planned, and MCPS will organize a cluster testing, IB testing in Blair High School that is not used as a polling place by the Board of Elections. When it comes to the northern part of the county, our operations manager visited Seneca Valley High School with the MCPS colleagues, and we found a way to organize both to keep polling place in Seneca Valley High School as it was in 2022 and as it was approved by the board, with MCPS organized IB testing at the upper two levels of the school and using completely separate entrance that is not used by BOE on the election day. But the last thing from operations, as mentioned earlier, we had for many years a polling place for precinct 0434. It was at the Presbyterian Church at Shady Grove. We have received a communication from the church leadership that would prompted us to start looking for a new location. We are hoping to have the location identified for the board to be presented to the board in December and approved, so we can submit it as an update to the state. When it comes to recruitment and election support, we are still processing and reaching out to anyone who expressed at any point interest to serve as an election worker for the 2024 elections. We sent out our regular election workers newsletter to over 10,000 individuals, and we reached out to another 1,700 who expressed interest at some point that they would like to serve as election judges. When it comes to the meetings, just for the public record, that board members, board attorney, election director, and staff attended the biennial meeting for Maryland election officials on October 19th. October 29th, board president and the election director attended the open house of the League of Women Voters for the Montgomery County. I had the pleasure to say a few words and just say a few words about preparations for the upcoming presidential election cycle. And I did emphasize the board's effort to provide continuity of service by opting to choose the same polling places, same early voting sites, and same drop boxes for the upcoming elections. On November 15th, the Maryland State Election Administrator visited Montgomery County, met with the staff, and discussed the preparations for the upcoming elections, with a special focus on available warehouse space in the building that we use either to store equipment or the materials that go to the polling places, or where we'll keep the ballots, blank ballots, when they come in before they are distributed to the polling places themselves. That would be Director's report.
Thank you, Boris. I'll call you in just a second, Alex. There was a lot in Boris's report, but I wanted to ask a question and then just pay a compliment. The question I wanted to ask is, do we have any indication from the state if there are any issues with our 14 early voting sites? Because I know they're meeting, I guess, a week from Thursday.
Yeah. My understanding, my communication from the state is that we were good to go.
Okay.
That is as short answer as we all like to hear.
Yes, yes. As long as they stick to it, that's a great answer. And then the
That's
compliment.
for the staff level. I don't speak, I cannot speak, I didn't speak to the state board.
Understood. Hard to imagine that our continuing in the same 14 places would be an issue for the board members, but I understand that you never know. The compliment I wanted to pay is that you all have, you in the operations section have done an outstanding job in negotiations with MCPS about these testing questions, in finding solutions that work for both them and us. I'm just thrilled that we were able to find solutions that allow the testing to continue that needs to, but that also takes care of our needs and didn't require us to, to move to other locations. So thank you very much for that work, because I know that requires some discussions in order to do that.
I think it was we work with the MCPS a lot. I think that we had a problem at hand, and I think that bringing perspective from both MCPS and BOE helped to find this solution. It also helped that our operations manager Mindy went with the MCPS to Seneca Valley to go through the school and identify all those entrances, so we can have on the spot realization that system will work. So that's the way to do it.
Excellent. Thank you. Alex.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was going to ask the election director a couple of questions about the budget.
Okay.
First page, it looks like for 60532 election workers management system, we've spent about 74,000 so far. And is that for the programming for creating the new software that you were talking about for the election worker management system?
So this it is ongoing work that will be done in phases. Janet can help me here if need be. So it's a programming of the software that we would use going forward. The work has been split in multiple phases that would enable us to use it in the upcoming elections, but also give a time for tabs to work on it in a sequence manner. So we will be paying for it as we go, because the work will not be delivered in one attempt.
Okay, so this is probably for one of those phases.
Yes.
Okay, great. Next page. Couple of things I noticed with imaging, it looks like we're over our original budget by a considerable amount. The absolute number is not huge, and with simple duplicating, it's about a third of the way down. It looks like we've already spent about 3/4 of our budget, and I just wanted to know, are you have any concerns about that? Should we be concerned that maybe we didn't ask for enough, or what do you think is going on there?
Yeah, Chuck, if you checked, actually, we looked at all the budget lines that we show as overspent. Do you mind just
Grab
grab
it,
a seat?
Actually, he doesn't have a camera. Turn one of his direct.
Quite all right. Can you hear my voice okay? So basically what it comes down to is that those systems are operated by the county. And when they present their budget, the county does a head count and they prorate their budget by the head count. For the interoffice mail, it's $104.51 for each full-time employee. And for records management, the imaging, it's $173.99 per employee. So they take that head count number, multiply it by the number of full-time employees in each department. And this is what the Board of Elections incurred. Challenge is that we have no control over their budget. So we can only accept what they give us. We'll look at, as we move forward, seeing if we can increase our budget lines so that it matches what their anticipated budget for head counts will be.
So the original budget is based on the head count, but then the what we've actually spent is whatever we're doing with imaging, and the two don't always match up. Is that what it is?
That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
We're going with whatever they charge us.
Okay.
Okay. And then central duplicating postage. Have we had to do a lot of mailing? You know, because I mean, we're not yet in the election year. It strikes me we're maybe still coming to the end of the slower period, but I'm just concerned that we burned through.
No, it's
about
inter-office
3/4
mail, Alex.
Oh, it's interoffice.
Yeah, level below that. It's inter-office
No,
mail.
no, well, I think he's talking about the bulk, 63200.
Oh, okay.
And again, it's not so much our activity, it's what the county says, okay, here is the budget for that department. We're taking it, we're splitting it up by head count of all full-time employees in this county. So we
So they
get,
charge us based on our pro rata share of the
that
county.
is correct,
Oh, okay.
Pro rata share of employees.
that's correct,
So whether we mail or we don't mail, they charge us based on the number of people we have.
that's correct. If we sit on our hands and do nothing, we're still going to incur that charge.
Wow.
So there's not much we can do about it.
It's out of our control.
Hire fewer people, but of course, we don't want to do that. Exactly. We want to use all of the duplicating budget. We want to keep hiring people.
Well, we would think, yeah.
Yeah.
So my only other question, Chuck, was about other communication services, 63, 634. Polling place phones. It would strike me we wouldn't have a need to spend any of that 27.9 yet. But I don't know.
I will answer this one.
Yeah.
So we would pay for the landlines at the polling places. However, we have moved like everyone else in the state, using the cell phones at the polling places because landlines are located in some corners. People cannot bring them to the BMD to tell us what's the error, if there's error or somewhere. So chief judges are mandated to have a cell phone when they come to serve at the polling place. We spent quite some time this year going and visited every polling place we have in the county, and we tested the strength of the signal for the cell phones. We identified a dozen or so of the polling places where signal was spotty. Therefore, this is the cost of the amplifying system that we purchased to have at those polling places that will provide election judges with sufficient strength of the signal to have continuous communication with the board. So due diligence was done across 240 polling places with the multiple carriers. We had a team member who went out with a number of phones in their hands, and they would text or call from each carrier. And those are the ones that we identified as potentially spotty. So no guessing there. We went had spent $5,000 to buy those signal strength amplifiers that will be deployed to those polling places to be utilized by chief judges.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. That's helpful. I have no further questions.
Okay. Any other, thank you, Chuck. Any other questions for Boris about his report? Oh, go ahead, Margie.
All right, well, Boris, and I wanted to reiterate, the president's, his compliments on the operational task of getting on the polling place and working with MCPS, because like just reading through the logistics, I thought it was very well done. And just making sure that you can accommodate 2 events in one building is no easy feat. So I also wanted to pay those compliments. My only question is really about the new on the new replacement election worker and future vote portals. I was wondering if the board is gonna get at least like a very brief presentation once it's done, or like a simulation just to see what like the updates are or what's new. I don't know if there was any thoughts behind that by any chance.
I'm not sure if that was ever a request. The system is literally that one that enables anyone who wants to serve to go in and complete the forms and start the process. So we can talk about that system once it's ready. But may I also, it is better to invite board members to test the system and we roll it out to try to sign it, so to see what kind of process the election workers need to go on their end. But not a problem at all on presenting us on our end.
Speaking just for myself, I'd be happy to help you test the system. But you probably want some better hackers than me. To do
Yeah.
that.
It's a there's no it's a functionality issues that are being tested back and forth. It's basically what would permanent and temporary employees are now and see how we can improve it to make it easier to integrate data that's coming from the election workers to speed up the process. Because it's not just, give us your name and you're ready to go. There is multiple steps there.
Okay, well, that's very helpful, and I would also like to be a tester, if it's an option, but thank you so much for that. I don't know if anyone else is interested, at least, and I like the presentation, I just want to see what it looks like really, but I don't know if anyone else isn't interested in seeing a simulation, would rather test it, or is it interested in testing it, would rather just see like a PowerPoint on it?
I'm kind of interested in both. I would think it would be useful for us to have a better understanding of it, but you tell us what the sequencing should be.
But can you just clarify for me when you say testing it from which perspective?
Well,
data entry
it was your suggestion for us.
No, I don't have a problem with that, because data entry is the whole process. It's something that we would need to do to integrate within the voters.
Right.
I assume you want to see what would be the experience of people that we are encouraged to apply. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
I think it would be helpful to first of all, because if we meet people who are interested, it's a lot easier to explain to them what's required if we've done it ourselves.
Okay.
This is applying to be an election worker?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. This is applying, right. This is just for election work, right? So yes, a great idea, Margie. Thank you. Did you have anything else?
No, that was it.
Okay.
I
Diana?
actually applied to do that in the past, just to see what kind of info I get. The way you're talking about?
Yes,
I'm still on the
that's-
mailing list.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like the best test is actually to apply yourself. And you can let us know later, we can remove you from the list if you want not to receive all those reminders that you should
No, I
training.
want to get every reminder.
They will
Fair
try
enough,
it
fair
if
enough.
You want to be a judge. Trust me, it's good to see.
I think that's the best way. So you can basically apply, take the online, take the training, and go through the whole set.
That's very helpful, because I wasn't sure if we were allowed to like apply just to test it, if that makes sense, so.
You mean you will apply and not serve on the end? I think we'll be fine there.
She'll be serving, she'll just be serving in a different capacity. We know from experience that board members get a wake-up call on election day, to make sure that we're out there serving. So, but not necessarily at a particular polling place, more like at a group of polling places. But anyway, that's great. Thank you. Any other questions for Boris about his director's report? Okay, we'll move to the board attorney's report. Kevin.
Thank you, David. Really, the only pressing issue that we have in terms of is finalizing the right of entry agreements for the early voting sites. And we need to have a follow-up meeting with MCPS regarding the Dropbox agreement. And we've had an initial meeting with the general counsel and someone in her office, and now we just need to go ahead and follow up with the people that are actually going to do the placement. From 2022 to the present, there's been a complete turnover in the people that Chris normally has worked with at MCPS regarding the drop boxes. And Mindy, we need to have an introductory meeting to go ahead and get them sort of just working on the logistics of doing the drop boxes.
So would you describe this as being pretty routine, or are there any particular issues with MCPS?
No, it's routine. We just need to go ahead and get it finalized. And we had an initial meeting, and I just need to follow up with Ms. Williams to get another meeting scheduled.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Anything else for Kevin? Okay, we will move to old business. which is the discussion and possible adoption of the board election social media policy. Or if you want to explain it first, and then I'll see if there's a motion after that.
Yeah, thank you. I will just go through a short proposal that comes from the staff about the use of social media policy, social media platforms. We have been using social media platforms for over a decade now. It gained the prominence, and it's very important for us to communicate with the voters and have our information, our election-related information, out in that manner. What Board of Election engagement on social media needed or needs now, it's an unofficial policy that will provide the guidance. How do we use it going forward, especially in terms of who we follow on those across different social media platforms, whether we are talking about X, Facebook, or Instagram. Currently, we are being followed with quite a significant number of individuals, organizations in the county, and on X, formerly known as Twitter platform, we are following over 2,100 individual accounts. Over 500 accounts on Facebook, and 148 accounts on Instagram. The number of accounts that we follow is significantly higher than a comparable board of elections in the state of Maryland. The closest board of elections in terms of total number of followed accounts on X is 753, which is 3 times less than what we follow. Montgomery County government is on 628, which is 3.5 times less than we follow. And the state board of elections is just 229, which is like 10 times less than we follow. The idea is that we have to do, and we have to emphasize everywhere and whenever possible, that BOA is a non-partisan organization. That we understand that following some accounts but not following others might create a perception that BOA favors certain individuals or ballot questions or causes, which would not be the truth. Recognizing the importance of social media, the staff would like to continue using social media platforms to sustain very robust information dissemination efforts that we have ongoing, to keep to sustain this position of the trusted source of election-related information as we go into a presidential cycle or general, and continue to maintain neutrality and promote non-partisan engagement through everything that staff does. Therefore, the proposal for the use of social media platforms from the staff is to stop following all currently followed accounts across all social media platforms, not following any accounts going forward, but in the same time encouraging public to follow Board of Elections on every social media platform available, knowing that we will do everything in our power to make it possible for them to follow us and enable them to, as I said, collect and learn the election-related information from the trusted source. That is what we would like to remain going forward. So our proposal is very simple: stop following accounts that are following now, discontinue that activity going forward, but remain open to get engaged with anyone on any platform that we have available for the information or need aid.
Okay, thank you, Boris. Is there a motion? I believe, Kina, you said you wanted to make a motion on this subject.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to approve the staff memo regarding social media policy going forward for the Board of Elections.
Is there a second?
I will second.
Okay. Daniel, I will call on you after I call on Kina as the maker of the motion. She goes first.
Mr. President, point of clarification for my activity at this moment.
I'm sorry?
Point of clarification for my activity at this moment.
Yes. If you want to give your views to support your motion, you get the first opportunity by having made the motion.
Yes.
And then I open it up to debate from everybody else.
Thank you.
Okay.
As far as my commentary regarding this staff memo, I greatly appreciate the effort that's been made by the board and the staff to look into this, understanding that this puts us in a point of being, as our director shared, a place of information sharing and the center point for all things elections, and being in a place so that we can be the most neutral makes us the best place for this. So I'm very, very happy to see that we did this so quickly.
Okay, thank you, Kina. Daniel.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Kina, for putting forward this motion. I just wanted to make sure that, again, for the benefit of the public, but also folks who are going to be watching this, that we're not discouraging the use of social media. And the platforms that have been made mention of are not the only platforms that are used in social media. I want to emphasize this because there are many communities that get most of their information through social media. There are other platforms that I'm not going to name, but we know that in terms of like these are areas where many folks from the immigrant community get their news. And so I just don't want people to feel like, well, the Board of Elections is stop, following people because we don't want to share information with people. I think the opposite is what we're trying to achieve here, which is we're trying to make sure we want people to follow us so that they could actually get more information. And then platforms that are used by immigrant communities, platform like WhatsApp, for example. Like these are places where people can actually share our information as well, because it will bring them back to either the board's website or it will provide the board's contact information, so where people can get the most accurate and up-to-date information that they may need about elections in Montgomery County. That is a comment I wanted to make.
Thank you, Daniel. Anybody else want to say anything before I take my turn? Okay, Margie, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Margie.
All right, thank you, Mr. President. I just really wanted to also thank the staff and how clear and concise this policy is. It covers so many bases, but it also is 2 pages and very easy to follow. So that's something I really appreciated when I looked at this. It really does address the issue at hand, but it also is something that I can read through and quickly understand what the policy of the board is. So I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you, Margie. I just wanted to add to what my colleague has said. As a nonpartisan organization, our board must ensure that all candidates, political parties, voters are both treated fairly and feel that they are treated fairly, and that no candidate or supporter or opponent of a ballot question receives or is perceived to receive preferential treatment. I'm not suggesting that anybody has. I'm just suggesting that when someone sees that we have that we are following some people and not others, and by definition we can't be following everybody all the time because it takes time to follow people. We want to make sure that everyone understands that we are neutral. We are, our job is to serve everyone. The mission of our board is simple: free, fair, and transparent elections for all candidates and voters. And I also want to underscore something that Daniel just said, which is by no means are we discouraging people from use of social media. On the contrary, we would like to have everyone follow us. We just don't want to be in a position where we are picking and choosing who the Board of Elections as an entity is following, and take the risk that somebody interprets that as an endorsement of some sort, when of course our job is, we don't endorse anybody, we share information with everybody. So anyway, I think it's a very well thought out policy, and I appreciate the fact that that we are doing this. I do have a question, which is I want to make sure that we are going to announce this policy on social media so that our social media followers and those we're following are aware of why we're doing this, and it's not a personal affront to anyone, or it shouldn't be, because we are essentially unfollowing everyone. But I want to make sure that will be part of the plan to let people know about this action. But Boris, perhaps you can fill us in on what you can do.
So a press release will be issued after the board meeting to reflect on the board discussion and the vote that the board will take on this policy. And the press release will go through the regular channels, and it will be published on the very same platforms that we are trying to discuss today about our new approach to them. So I think as President said, having proposed policy, having a clear vote by the board on it, and transmitting that information to the community that is relying on those platforms is the key step in the whole process. So the information will go out following the board meeting and following the vote that board will take.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. There's Alex.
I just wanted to register my agreement with everything that's been said. I think really the best aspect of this policy as drafted is that it does maintain, I think, promote neutrality and continue to promote nonpartisan engagement. One thing I did notice, and we may not have intended this to cover this, and it may require a much more nuanced discussion, is we don't have a policy, I don't think, that gives guidelines for what board members and staff should be saying in their individual capacities. Now, obviously, there is an inherent tension between the First Amendment and when people speak, if they identify themselves in the wrong way, they may convey the impression that they are speaking on behalf of the board. So I think that's worthy of a discussion, at least of whether such a document might be created.
We certainly can discuss that. We do have some guidance from the bylaws, which talk about our need as board members to maintain impartiality and kind of our nonpartisan role. But that's not that may not be as specific as what you're talking about. And on the other hand, board members and staff have a great ability to amplify our messages. So I think we want to be cautious, and I know you do too, because you just expressed it, that there is really a balance between people's individual rights and the need of our board to be, to be both impartial and perceived as impartial. So, but I'd be happy to work with you on how to strike that balance, and if need be, we can discuss it at a future meeting.
Thank you.
So, anyone else? Go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, I didn't even look at my screen. So
not a problem.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Alex, for addressing the issue, or rather, what will eventually be a conversation about staff and board members' engagement on social media. As it stands right now, within our policy, there is information shared about our engagement with the public, though, as I'm sure all of you understand, that type of engagement has evolved with the age of social media. So I very much look forward to the opportunity of working with you all to figure out what that looks like for us, because I do want to be on the right side of this information sharing and of course the right side of neutrality.
Thank you, Tina. Diane, your hand was up. Did you want to say something?
I simply was the 1490. I agree with all the comments. I thought that was one part of the social policy. Because we had talked about it at the last board meeting. I'm not disappointed it's there. It's one, it will be a valuable conversation to have.
I was not aware that this policy was ever going to cover individual staff and individual board members. But I certainly think that it's something we should think about. And again, we have to proceed very carefully, balancing the need for impartiality with the, with the need for individual expression. And also, as Tina points out, in the modern era, the ability to amplify the messages that the board is sending out is a valuable one. And so we have to think about how to accomplish that. Kevin, you look like you have something to say.
I was just saying that certainly happy to go ahead and discuss that in the coming weeks, but we do need to be mindful that there are different constitutional standards that apply when you're dealing with a government entity that has a public forum as opposed to a private individual.
So just to take that one small step further without getting into a long First Amendment discussion this afternoon, if I understand what you're saying correctly, there would be the standard for a government entity, because we are a government entity and because we're supposed to be neutral, would be different than telling someone what they can do basically on their own time in their in their own space.
That's correct. That's correct. And actually I haven't candidly been following it very closely, but there is a Supreme Court case out there that's discussing this issue right now, and the scope of what standard of review you actually apply. For example, if there's a different standard if you're a government entity as opposed to a candidate with their campaign page. There are different levels of review for that. So it's a very complicated issue that needs a really thorough analysis, particularly when you get into individual rights in terms of what they can and cannot use social media for.
Okay. Well, it may be that before we have a discussion of the full board, that it might make sense to do a little of the background work on that and maybe even appoint a committee to look at that, because I know there's a lot of things to consider there, and it's a lot more delicate for individuals than it is for the board.
And if you'd like, I can have a research done to help guide you in terms of your sort of your analysis.
I think that'd be great. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Any other comments on this policy?
Call the question.
Okay. No need to call the question if there's no comments. All those in favor of Tina's motion to support this policy, please raise your hand. And it is unanimous, 5-0. Thank you all very much. Next on the agenda is Boris to talk about the website.
Okay.
Boris, please turn on your microphone.
Keep forgetting this part. As I promised at the last board meeting, we are trying to start gathering data on a calendar month basis about statistics about the usage of our website. Last time at the board meeting, we presented data that did not cover the whole calendar month because we didn't start at right time. This one document that was shared with the board covers October 1st, October 31st, and this is the process we will follow going forward. collecting the same data on a monthly basis, so we'll be able to follow the trends and follow the dynamic of usage across the time. If you look at the document that was shared with the board and posted on our website, we had almost 18,000 page views. Number of distinct users was 8,500. Number of sessions a bit under 11,000. Engaged sessions, something that lasts 10 seconds or more, has 2 clicks on the page, multiple segments of the page. And we have an average engagement time of 41 seconds. Page views or per active user is 2.1, meaning that people go in and people find what they need. You will also notice that most of the visits to our board come through Google searches or Bing or Yahoo searches. When it comes to most visited pages, we provided the list of top 10 for the board, and this is what we will do every month. Most unvisited pages in that period. May I just point out to the board that item number 3, sample ballot voter guide, that is an outlier for this board meeting. It's not an error. We believe that this is result of Gettysburg and Rockville elections, where voters were coming to our website to look for the sample ballots. So it is something that we are glad they know what our website is. They know where to look for the sample ballot. We just didn't have municipal sample ballots.
Just as long as they're not expecting the 2024 sample ballot.
Fair enough. So I just wanted, because this is the number that sticks out, and this is the result. This is Rockville and Gettysburg municipal elections. But again, I'm kind of happy that the voters are comfortable knowing that we have sample ballots. They come to our website expecting to find it there, which is kind of encouraging that there's a certain habit to come to our website and pick up that information, even though we don't provide for the municipal elections. So I don't expect this number to be this high next month, but there will be overlap because the elections were November 7th, 8th. So there will be still maybe higher number than expected, but I would say it's still a good thing.
What are school poll workers?
That's future vote.
That's future vote. Okay.
Mr. President, what's encouraging about this is that 42%, according to these numbers, of the people who visited this month know exactly where to go.
Yeah.
They didn't have to search. They either bookmarked it or entered the URL. I thought that was encouraging.
777vote.org is so many times repeated, and I think Dr. Z puts it everywhere. So it's catchy, and I think it's very familiar and becoming like household term.
No, that is excellent. Also glad to see that at least a few people are reading our board meeting documents. So we apparently have, some people out there who are paying attention to what we do. So that is good. Anything else, then Daniel?
Thank you, Mr. President. So I do notice here that item 6 for election worker program overview is 532 versus election judges getting started is 283.
Please turn on your microphone.
Okay, so just putting those two numbers out there, does it seem to be any barriers between one versus the other that people don't see an opportunity in both to visit both pages? It's just so far apart.
They are on the same drop down.
Right. So is there a reason is there maybe any reason that we can think of about why it's just not going to the next step?
So I think that people go to find the overview of because based on all the promotion that's being done,
right,
and the advertising that will give them available positions and available stipends, and the effort that will be requested from them to be volunteers when it comes to our work. Getting started. Sorry, I don't necessarily remember from the top of my head. So. So getting started is completing the applications and taking all the trainings, basically taking you through the process itself.
Right.
So the fact that you will have a higher number of people who check what is offered versus those who will follow actually through, it's normal.
Right, and I would expect that. I guess my question is, because it's still a little bit of a difference between one versus the other. Is there anything we could be doing as a board to help people really complete the process of not just checking it out, but really actually signing up?
So there are two things here. Number one, there is a process that's available now, and there is a process that will be more smooth. Let's put it like that. In January, when the new election worker support program is rolled out, what TEPS is helping us now to work on. That's number one. Number two, the fact that someone checked now and will apply at later point, it's their personal decision.
Okay.
And number three, we will see these numbers that people will check. They will see that what are the benefits,
Right.
and the dates will not work for some of them. And
Right.
some of them will come back later when the trainings becomes available, and they will plan against those trainings.
Okay.
Because it's kind of too early, too hard to commit, but this is how the system will work itself out.
Okay.
I personally, I like the fact that people are already visiting, people are looking.
Nice. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Daniel, then Marchie.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, Boris, in terms of, I know there's a function, or there's an ability for people to text. Are those texts, like when they text to, it could be update their address or register to vote, is that coming to this website, or is there another mobile website set up for that?
So I think that Dr. Z will be able to say more about that, but texting option is separate from the website. And those links that are provided through texting are the same links that are on our website, but which are eventually actually state board of elections links. Those are links to go into the state and submit update to your voter registration, to register to vote, to request mail-in ballot. So in Maryland, even though each board of elections at the county level has that link on their website, it's a state link. Every application feeds into the state system and then goes back to the counties.
Okay, I've tried that and I've tested that, and I think that's a very functional.
Oh, it's very simple, very fast.
And I just want to make sure, as I say, for the benefit of, again, everyone.
Absolutely.
That, wanted to make sure that we can get that word out as well, so people can text and know that there are various ways they could actually update or even register to vote, or even encourage people to register to vote as well.
And someone can correct me if I'm wrong. They can also sign up to serve. So there's a whole list of options that are available, and I believe that after every election, we give statistics to the board how many people utilize this option and in which segments. So there are multiple options there. It's not just update, register, serve, request a mail-in ballot. Everything is there.
Right. So when perhaps Dr. Z can cover this when we get to his part of the agenda, but when somebody gets a text and when somebody texts frequently, as I remember it, the response is a link to our website. So it's possible that some of the data that we're getting from mobile users who are coming to our website directly to a particular page could be because they texted and gotten that response.
The link, for example, if they request to update their voter registration, they will get the link to the state portion.
Right.
And that link is available on our website, but it's not our website.
All right, but if let's say we're to to serve is a good one. That would come to our website.
That would come to our
right, and then but that would come to our website as someone would text whatever the appropriate thing is to text in order to serve. They would get a text back that basically says, click this link, and then the link would take them to our website directly to how to sign up to serve.
That's my understanding. So
Okay.
you will have those that will go directly to URL to follow this through. And then those will, I believe, again, I'm not IT person here, those will show up as links from other like social media, like websites, or basically the user entered URL
Right.
directly, because there's a direct link.
So it's not necessarily the case that everyone knows exactly what the URL is for how to sign up to be an election judge, but they get help by texting in order to do that.
I cannot.
All right, we'll wait for Doc. We'll wait for Dr. Z for that one. Margie, you had your hand up. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Mr. President. So, I just wanted to ask, when it says links from websites specifically, is that like, other websites or like county websites that link the Board of Elections? Or like, are there, other websites that have us on their web pages?
I have to look into that. As I said, this is just a statistical report that is pulled by our colleagues, so I have no detailed information on each aspect of this. But I would assume so, because you can go to the state website and you can get a link to a local board of elections through the state domain. That's how so I believe there will be people who will find us that way. Instead of looking for the county board of elections, they will go just to the state board of elections and then go down to the county based on the.
Okay, and then that 2%, is it 2% of the 17,000 of total page views?
I have to confirm that, but I would say so.
Okay.
But I have to confirm again. You have to tell me what questions I need to ask, because as I said, this is a very statistical report that doesn't have a very necessarily thorough explanation of all those details.
Right. I think it's just because since it looks like 2%, it seems low, but 2% of this number, 17,000, is 340, which is like 2% of 17,987 is 340. And I think for a month, that's a pretty good click through. So I think like maybe having the numbers might show like even better how well it's performing, but that's just a thought. Because it, again, 2% seems like a small number, but when you look at the actual number, like 340 through social media and referrals, that seems like a good number in a month.
I would argue that if 2% of unique voters came this way, it's still a big number. We are talking about 170 people. That's, you know, in elections that we 170 voters is a lot. Following on our election results, 170 election workers is a lot, knowing that we meet those people at the polling places. So I would say 170 voters in October in one election year is a good number.
Okay, well, that's helpful. Thank you.
And I'll just say, Boris, that obviously this information was very helpful to us, and your reward for that was lots of questions.
Yeah.
Asking for more information. So, but we appreciate it very much. Any other questions for Boris on this subject? Okay, next is outreach.
You want to shoot this?
Dr. Zelaya. Welcome.
Hi, good afternoon. It's just interesting and odd seeing everyone at the table.
It's been a while.
I know it's been a while.
It's been a while. It's good. It's good to see you.
It's good to see everyone. Yeah. So outreach. So our early fall visit to MCPS is coming to a close. We're going to end about the first week of December, and then we're going to go back to the schools starting after winter break. Once again, to engage. Someone's always turning 16. Someone's always turning 18. Someone always has an interest in serving as a poll worker. And someone also has interest in serving in future vote. So we're going to go back to do the engagement as well with MCPS and SGA. We're also still targeting working with the private school system. So we also, we did Holton Arms recently. I did a presentation work with the Social Studies Department. It was interesting engaging the young ladies. By month's end, we're going to Good Counsel, and we're still in discussion pending with Bolis and Don Bosco Cristo Rey. When I say pending, we're still working on the date and logistics. We have contacted other schools like Holy Cross and Prep. We're still waiting for them to respond. So I'm gonna, there's a whole list. Yes, the whole list in Montgomery County. So it's just a matter of, I give them a window, the headmaster, to respond, and then we'll contact once we haven't heard anything from them. MCGOP engagements, we've been working with them. We recently did Leisure World GOP in Upper Montgomery County Republican Women's Club. Got a guest speaker at their headquarters in Rockville. Very fulfilling, really a lot of good inroads, distribute a lot of information, contacts. Did talk to them about also our texting prompt, QR codes, etc., so they could start using those as well, because those links go to the corresponding State Board of Elections website as it pertains to voter registration, update, check your registration, etc. Always working closely with the Regional Services Center and the Offices of Community Partnerships. I'm meeting with the different advisory councils, with them working through Diane Vu, the Director of Office of Community Partnership. So that's always ongoing, even in the odd year. So we're working to get on the same page. The leadership there will help us distribute and translate some of our social media banners, access to different community events, whether they're virtual or in person. If you look at the outreach calendar, it's kind of getting towards the winter time. So everyone hunkers down for the holiday. And then once spring comes, there's more activities as it pertains to events, but we'll still continue to engage the electorate in different venues. January 30th is the National Help America Vote Day. So we're going to do a concerted effort to be in the community, multiple locations, multiple hours, similar to National Voter Registration Day. So we're going to do that January 30th. So we're working on coordinating that as well. We've been to all of the county executive community conversation on the FY25 budget. There's 2 more, I believe. We're also confirmed to participate in those as well. The last 2 are going to be with the Chinese Community Services Center and at Leisure World. So those will be completing by the end of the year. Other than that, I know President Naaman had a question on the SMS. So depending, QR codes work well when it's like posters, if we send to the schools, a publication, a trifold, a folder. Texting works well if I'm on the radio, if you guys are getting interviewed, because you can't scan a QR code if you're on WTOP. So then you say, so remember, register to vote, text vote to 77788. The QR code obviously won't work in that kind of venue. And then, and depending on the application is how we use the texting and the corresponding QR codes. And so, you get a little bit of creative depending on what it's for. I don't like putting QR codes on, let's say, a banner outside of a high school, because if you're driving, you shouldn't be using your cell phone. So if you're at the light, text vote to 77788, obviously. So depending on the application and where it's more appropriate as it pertains to outreach and engagement. And I think the questions about the hits or the number of interactions with the links. I know, for example, many of you will either follow us or see what we post almost on a daily basis on social media. So I usually will push the FAQs, the poll worker application, and which is the other one? Oh, the position and stipend. I usually push those 3 because those are the most popular questions. What are the positions? Do you have part-time positions or part day? What's the stipend? Where do I apply? And is there like an FAQ? So that's the reason. Also in social media, if you put too much jargon, no one's going to read it. So it's like literally quick, we're here, register to vote, join the team, a couple of informational links, and the actual code. I've been starting to avoid adding text 777 vote to a social media banner because the link's right there. But obviously, like I said, if I'm doing radio or I'm on television, then verbally you would say that. And if it's something that's circulating on the flyer or trifold, the QR code works.
So when someone texts or they use the QR code, it directs them to the website?
To that link.
To that link.
Yeah, to that website or that URL.
So again, what we might see is a hit that goes directly to a page that's not the home page. And a good chance, I don't know what the percentages are, but we could probably figure it out. But there's a good chance that somebody used a QR code or a text in order to get there.
Correct, yes. Yeah, so the QR code, like for vote, it's the Maryland online voter registration. And then if it's a QR code or a text vote, it goes to that same hyperlink. Yeah, and that's the same one that's on our website on 777 vote.
The only thing I'd like to emphasize is the fact that we want to make it easy for people to, and I think the device that is in everybody's hand these days is a smartphone. And I just again want to commend you for that work that you're doing and making, thinking some of these processes and steps for, before, putting together in terms of the social media posts that you do, but also the flyers that you also create as well. I mean, I'm one of those people that are liking, sharing, amplifying whatever is put out there. So thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure.
Also want to recognize Janet and the IT team, Tebs, for helping out. They do the heavy lifting. When I come to her office, she looks at me and she's like, "What do you want now?" But I do want to recognize this as a team effort.
Thank you.
Thank
you. I only had one other question, which was that, Boris, I gave you a link to the county council's youth town hall. Does Hilberto have it?
He's on our calendar. This morning about that. We'll follow up.
Okay.
Yeah, it's on our calendar.
Good. That would be, I think it would be a good opportunity that somebody brought to my attention, and that's why I sent it to you all.
Yeah, and anytime any of the board members or even staff, if you know of an event, obviously don't ask if it's for tomorrow. I can't promise you. I'll try.
For the record, the one I sent is not for tomorrow.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's not. But also for the public.
Yes.
If those in the public, if there's a community event, an opportunity,
Yes,
my talking points, whether it's 5 people or 5,000, just let us know, and we will do everything in our part to serve.
Right. We appreciate that. Even if it's Hilberto's birthday, he's still out there.
Yeah. 7-Eleven.
Yeah. Doing his thing.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else have anything on? Oh, Margie, go ahead.
All right, thank you, Mr. President. I just had a quick question. I don't know if I'm just looking at this month's and the one from last month, but I wonder if we've done any outreach to Poolsville High School, or if we've done that this year, or maybe
we went to Poolsville Day. We went already to Poolsville High School. We're going to go back after winter break. And then we do some things with the Maggie Nightingale Library. There's not many public venues as per se in Poolsville, but we visit them often. So we're all going to go back there, like I said, over winter break, multiple times with the libraries. And then we work closely with their city of Poolsville, their commissioners to identify. But we always go there.
When you go to a school, I know that there are times that you kind of can set up in a popular spot where people come by, but is there any announcement, or is there, do the students in the school or the faculty members know that you're there?
Yeah, beyond the social media posting, I always post a couple of days beforehand. Okay. We work through the SGA because I'm entering someone else's castle.
Right.
So then what we do is work with the business administrators, the SGA advisor, the students themselves. And so I ask them, this is what I need. Where can I benefit maximizing selling our cookies, right? Our service.
Right.
So they'll say, whether it's in the cafeteria, for example, Richard Montgomery is on Main Street next to the media center, I need foot traffic.
Right.
So they provide that. So I go with their guidance, and then they provide the venue, the tables, the chairs, and we always show up. But yes, we've historically worked with them closely. Yes, and also dates, because if there's corresponding testing, or we've been where there's a prep rally and we're not going to, most of the kids are going to be in the auditorium. So we work closely with the school system.
I apologize, Margie. I just kind of jumped in there, but go ahead.
No, it's completely fine. And thank you for the information. This information might have already been in other calendars that we've gotten, but I always wanted to check in because I know there are things that are out of the control of people, because up county, I live up county, I live in Germantown. I know there's not as many events. But I just want to double check on Poolsville because so far up north there, and I always want to make sure that they're also getting activity and engagement.
No, I
thank
agree.
you for that.
No, I agree. I'm a Clarksburg resident, so I'll be the first one to grant this that much. So I always talk to the individuals who are up there. But yes, we do. And we, whether it's a car show, whether it's a bake sale, even one year for Halloween, I walked around as a ballot. And we passed out promoting early voting vote center, the Damascus Center, and the 3 ways to vote, because because there's not a lot of a plethora of community events, I will do what it takes to make get the community involved, especially those in the.
Well, thank you so much for that.
So next year you can be a blank.
Yes, yeah, with all the pages, with all the pages.
So what you do?
Yep. Card 1, card 2 in the front. And the back. Yes.
Okay, Kim.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Dr. Z, for this presentation. I greatly appreciate it. And I know all the work that you and your staff members do towards this is not easy, especially the smaller staff, obviously. So kudos to all of you and what you're able to accomplish. To that point, one of the questions I have is, I guess, in reference to next year and it being a presidential election year, one of the larger larger election years. Would you suggest to affinity groups for Montgomery County? You mentioned that you have a lot of partnership with them in terms of getting the information out there. Would you suggest for them to reaching out to you for opportunities for you to come in and share with them about what's going on, how they can sign up, just things for future votes?
Yes.
Or is this more of a two-way collaboration that you recognize at a certain point of the year, getting close to primaries, for instance, that your office makes a concerted effort to go into those affinity group meetings, making sure that you all are informing them as needed, especially because we are getting a even larger influx of newer residents to the county.
Yeah, so what we usually do is the month of the particular election, we halt outreach on that first day. So since the election is May, it will be May 1st, because a lot of our team members now focus and they pivot for other duties, including the team members that conduct outreach. So historically, if it's November, it's around the second week of October. If it's May, since the election is May 15th, 14th, it's the first day in May. And then as it pertains to those activities, we put a date, like kind of a hard stop. However, there's been times where if there's a large event and someone really would like for us to be there, once again, I'm there. We'll make it happen. But there's a point where we do have to pivot to serve all our voters that intend to vote either by mail or in person. Yeah.
Anything else on the outreach? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dr. Solano.
Thank you.
All right.
Now the easy stuff.
Yeah, that's right. No, well, hopefully the rest will be easy because I only have so much battery left, and I'm pretty sure I'm gonna say my piece on this one, and then if I lose battery, I may be begging each of you to let me on with you.
No. I've decided that I actually would allow David to use my computer. The only thing is to be named Daniel Corona.
Yes. And I'm not sure people will be able to tell the difference, but I'm guessing that maybe they will. All right. So the next item on the agenda is new business, and we have a discussion of some possible legislative proposals from the board. This is the document that I distributed last night. I sent an earlier version on Friday night, but there was a revised version last night. It is not necessarily in order of priority. I'm going to start by making the motion myself to approve the whole list. And then if people would like to comment on certain ones on the list or amend certain ones on the list, we can do that. Or if you want me to go through the list, we can do that as well. Some of them are going to be familiar to those who've been on the board before. Some of them may require some additional explanation. But anyway, I move the list.
Great. And can I ask a question?
Can I see if there's a second?
Procedural? Oh, yes, absolutely.
I will second the motion.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
To show, among other things, that it's bipartisan.
Yes. In fact, this was a list that Ami assisted in putting together. Diane, your procedural question.
I was wondering about my intention to request that we vote individually.
Well, here's what I was,
On the proposals.
here's what I would suggest. Why don't we find the ones that you want to vote individually on and separate those? Because if we go through each one individually out of 11 proposals, there's going to be some that are not going to be controversial and some that would be. I would rather that we not have to have that many different separate things, but, I mean, we could do it that way.
No, I agree entirely
How
with that.
how much explanation do people want, I guess is the question. Alex?
Mr. President, might I
I
suggest,
I
think
think
the ones that might be
problematic for some of us
are numbers 9
9
and
and
10
10 of your revised list.
Okay.
I think
Revised list.
I think 1 through 8 and 11, I think are make eminent sense. Number 7, the only question I have about, we would need to make sure that threaten is properly defined under the
Right.
criminal law,
Right.
and what that means, but I think these are
these are all fairly
non-controversial.
non-controversial.
Okay, well, let me ask then others. If we were to consider 1 through 8 and 11 separately from 9 and 10 and consider 9 and 10 individually, does that work for everybody?
Yes.
Okay, so let's start with 1 through 8 and 11, and let me give a brief explanation so that the public understands what we're doing and why. And then we can vote on 1 through 8 and 11, and we will take 9 and 10 separately. Alex and then Ami.
Point of order, Mr. President, would that not require you to modify your motion in some respect? And
Same comment I was going to make.
Oh,
Why don't you amend your-
or perhaps it could be withdrawn and reintroduced.
Here's what I'm doing. Under parliamentary procedure, we can vote to divide the question. Okay, that does not require amending the motion. That just requires dividing the question. We just did that by unanimous consent. Okay, I didn't make you make a motion. I didn't make anyone have a second. I didn't make us take a vote. We could do all that. It would be unanimous. We all agreed to do it. So the question is divided. Consider me to have still moved for the approval of all of those on this list. But we will vote on them 1 through 8 and 11. It will be one group. 9 will be a separate group. 10 will be a separate group. That's what we all just agreed to. Okay. So let me just make a quick explanation, and you guys are lucky because with my battery running out, I have to talk fast about these. Number 1 is the ballot marking device, fixing the 7 candidate limit on a page to allow 14 candidates on a page, and on the second page also list the office for which candidates are running. You may recall that this was an issue in the 2022 election. You also may recall that this board is on record since 2016, suggesting to the state that they fix this problem. It has not been fixed yet. The hope is to keep letting people know that we want this for 2026 because it's not going to happen for 2024. We don't want to disadvantage people based on what letter their last name begins with. Number 2, require voters who are making online requests for web delivered ballots, which I have decided to call printed home mail-in ballots because that gives you a better sense as to the difficulties involved in that. To affirm their knowledge of the steps involved, which includes the number of pages to print, the addressing of the envelope, paying for postage, using a drop box, duplicating that we do onto a ballot form before they accept their application. It would be one affirmation, but it would be requiring them to know that that's happening and then giving them an opportunity to change the form of mail-in ballot that they want to a U.S. mail ballot. Number 3, send an email reminder to all voters on the permanent mail-in ballot list for web delivered ballots, or should I say printed home mail-in ballots, reiterating the information about the steps and giving them an opportunity to change. There's already a reminder requirement in the law to voters who are on the permanent mail-in ballot list. This would be an opportunity for those who have opted for printed home ballots to change that selection if they are so inclined. Number 4, require the state board to pull requests for U.S. mail ballots that have been processed by local boards every business day within 45 days of election day, and to transmit them to the vendor within 1 business day for mailing to the voter. This is another attempt to try to limit the amount of time it takes for U.S. mail ballots to arrive for voters. We've heard stories of people where it took more than 2 weeks. This was based on the tracking information that the state board had during last election. I'll come back to you, Alex, in just a second. Number 5, changing the certification deadline to make it at least 21 days after election day. We have never and can never be done by the second Friday after the election, as provided in the election article now. This is closer to the time that we actually have been certifying our results, which is roughly 3 weeks after election day. It's actually taken us a little bit longer, but the hope is to try and find ways to do it that way. Number 6, this is a new proposal that I've not had a chance to discuss with the other elected body that's involved here, which is the Board of Education. But it's to move the start of the terms of the Board of Education members from December 1 to the first Tuesday after the first Monday in December, which would be after the charter's date for the start of the terms for the county executive and county council. The idea being that this would buy us anywhere from, a few days to a week more than what we have now in order to get our work done. Number 7, make it a crime to threaten or assault any election worker at election offices, voting locations, including drop boxes, or at canvass meetings. The goal here was to be on record saying that this is a priority. I realize that there is a lot of work to be done to define what is a threat, to define what is an assault, as Boris and I have discussed, people can threaten your livelihood and people can threaten your person. That's not necessarily the same thing. And so there's a lot of work that would need to be done on that, but we really should be on record. And we were actually from a year ago on record on that. Number 8, which might be able to be done by regulation, which is to allow 5 business days to prepare for a recount rather than the current requirement that it be within 2 business days. 2 business days is only possible thanks to the excellent negotiating skills of our counsel, who is frequently able to convince those who want to recount to work with us on when it will be. But there's a lot of work that goes into preparing for a recount if you want to get it done right. So this would give us adequate time for that. Number 11, we'll have to call this the Alan Banoff provision because he has insisted upon it many times, which is change the ballot instructions to specify, please use black or blue ink. As those of us who've been through Canvas know, we spend a lot of time using pen to color in circles that are filled out in pencil. It requires having people observe it so that we know that they are not filling in new ballots, but filling in what the ballots already say. It would be way better for everybody involved if voters were to vote in pen, and it would be very clear to them that that is what is we will be sure to make sure that Mr. Banoff knows that we had this conversation and that you made that you made that clear. Are there any questions about those, again, 1 through 8 and number 11? Alex.
Just briefly, Mr. President, for number 4, what is the current requirement?
Or is there a current requirement? Number 4 is the pulling of ballots by the state that have been processed by us. I don't believe there is a current requirement.
I don't believe there
I
is.
don't believe there is. Yeah.
I don't think there is a requirement. I think that there's a business practice, and it's dictated by the volume of the processed applications that exist at the local boards. The first mailing is always massive because it's all the permits and all that everything that's processed before the mailing starts, and later on, the number of applications available at the board goes down. It picks up again towards as we get closer to early voting and election day, and this is where the business practice kicks in rather than regulation on the state board.
And I would just add that part of the goal here is not only to help our voters to get their ballots sooner, but also to encourage them not to come to the polls and vote provisionally because they have not yet received their mail-in ballot, which causes more work for them, more work for us, more longer lines, et cetera. So, we're not just trying to make the state work harder, we're trying to make it easier to have fewer provisional voters. Anything else about 1 through 8 and 11? Okay, let's move to a vote. All those in favor of supporting 1 through 8 and 11, please raise your hand. And it is unanimous. Okay. My computer is officially on life support, so I will start with number 9, and then we will at some point I will be sharing with Mr. Karoma, and we will hope that the voters will out there will understand the difference between the two of us.
I'll find a solution for that.
Okay. He's gonna. Yeah.
Minutes recess to get extension cord or something. Number of us have the same problem.
And then we can all.
Well, I don't have my cord with me, but I'll be happy to have
Like a two.
that one?
Here, try this.
We still do that too.
Okay, all right. We will have a 5-minute recess.
Okay.
Okay,
Get the plug up.
I have a plug.
all right, 5-minute recess.
Thank you. We'll be right back.
There you go.
Everyone ready to? Attendees, yes, our
Everyone's cameras.
Thank you. Thank you, Tina. The microphone is now on. I want to officially thank Kina. I want to thank Kina for enforcing the break. Thank you for that. Okay. Yes.
The communication expert.
Yes, she is, she is proving it today. Okay, now just remember the mic is hot right now. Okay, so we will proceed to number 9. Number 9 is to allow voters who vote the wrong party ballot in the primary to have their ballots accepted in part rather than rejected in full, so that their votes for the nonpartisan school board races are counted. So as it stands currently, if a voter goes to the polls and they believe that they should get a Democratic ballot, and the voter registry says that they are not entitled to a Democratic ballot because they are registered as a Republican or an independent or something, not as a Democrat, we not only do not count their votes in the party election in which they're not allowed to participate, we also do not count their vote in the nonpartisan school board election, which everyone gets to participate, whether you are a Democrat or Republican, an independent, a Green Party, whatever party you're in. Everyone gets to vote in the school board primary, regardless of your party affiliation, except in this instance, if you get the wrong party ballot, then the instruction from the state is that we have to reject the ballot in full. And I will just say from my perspective, there's a couple of reasons why I think that this is an appropriate thing for us to fix. Number one, we have many instances where people vote in a way that they are ineligible for some races and eligible for others. If somebody votes in the wrong legislative district, we will not count their votes in the wrong legislative district, but we will count all of their votes in federal offices or state offices or county offices in which they are entitled to vote. If in this instance, the provisional ballot application is very poorly worded, we have commented on this to the state. I don't know if Kevin has a count of how many times, but over and over again, because the ballot asks voters, which ballot do you want, not which ballot are you eligible for. So we do have voters who may not realize that Maryland has a closed primary. They may come from an open primary state, or they may just not be that much involved in politics like some of the people in this room. And so they request the ballot. Again, I don't think the penalty for having the wrong ballot should be that your entire ballot, including races for which you are eligible to vote, no matter what your party affiliation, is thrown out. So school board races are obviously very important. I mean, all elections are important, but certainly we wouldn't want to treat them differently than other elections. At the moment, we do. At the moment, like I said, if you are ineligible to vote in some races, we count the other ones, but not in this instance. In this instance, if you are eligible to vote for school board, no matter what your party affiliation, your vote is thrown out completely. So that is why I made the proposal in number 9. And I'm happy to recognize anybody else who would like to speak on this question. Diane, you have your hand up. You go next.
Yes, sir. I want to thank you for your well-reasoned explanation. I oppose for the reasons that I believe. Number one, I think it establishes a dangerous precedent to start making exceptions and therefore throw ballots into adjudication when it is something in a primary where you vote either Republican or Democrat, depending on your registration. When there is such a bright line, if this is one exception beginning, there may be more. I think it's a bad precedent. And I think overarching all of that is the question about how often does this happen? That we need to change the procedure. I think it's such a radical way. When it is such a minority of the total votes cast. And I think there is an easier way to address this and a more acceptable, excuse me, and that goes to the explanation or the description you gave us of part of the reason for the problems, or part of the reason for why this problem occurs, and that is the wording to voters selecting the ballot that they would like. I think it's pretty obvious that during a primary and a closed primary that you vote the ballot for the party in which you are registered. And I think it's, again, I think it's dangerous to start making exceptions for such a bright line rule.
What else? Before, Alex, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, Mr. President, yeah, I think that sort of gets to one of what Ms. Dillon said, gets to one of the heart of the issue for me is how much of a problem is this? How widespread is it? I think we have to be very careful about changing the code to address things that, you know, occur very seldomly. But I guess the other thing that I might sort of want to explore is the reason someone is given an incorrect ballot is only because the election judges give them the ballot that they think they're entitled to. But usually, I would think it's the case, someone may believe that they're registered with a party, but the registration that appears in the poll book is the accurate one. So why not give them the correct ballot when they go in, even if they think we're wrong, rather than have them vote provisionally, and then, you know, it doesn't count because it turns out the board was correct, that they were not, say, a registered Democrat when they were unaffiliated, and that kind of thing. And you know, that's the you know, and again, it's going to be another procedure that has to be implemented. The other thing that I'm wondering is, why is there a reason? Maybe we don't know what it is, why the wrong party ballots are treated differently than voting in the wrong precinct. You know, it is perhaps more common or more understandable why someone might go to the wrong precinct, but it's hard to believe that you would not know what party you were registered in for a primary unless a mistake was actually made. And I don't know how many times we've made mistakes like that.
Were you on the board when the motor vehicle administration was changing people party affiliation without their knowledge?
I was.
Okay, so we had at least one example. Okay, so we can be sure. In some story, it's actually, I mean, it's that. Prior to this board's intervention to get the motor vehicle administration to stop giving the person behind the counter the ability to enter into the system what your choice is about changing your party affiliation. There were a number of instances, and this board heard about a number of them from people, because you might imagine that for some people, their party affiliation is more important to them than their religious affiliation, where they get told that they are a member of the Green Party and they're a member of the Republican Party, or they get told that they're a member of the Republican Party and they're a member of the Democratic Party. And we had a number of lifelong members of political parties whose party affiliation was changed by motor vehicles through no fault of theirs. And then they go to the polls and then they're told, you're not a member of the party that you've been a member of your entire life. You are a member of a different party. Now, we can talk about what the best way is to deal with those kinds of errors. And whether those errors still occur, it is possible for people with the right information to go online and attempt to change your affiliation. But all I'm suggesting here is that the punishment for voting the wrong party ballot, whether you believe it to be true or not, should not be that you lose your right to vote in the one election that everyone gets to vote in, regardless of your party affiliation. There really is only, I mean, I guess if it's the general election, which is not really an issue here, but if it was the general election, there'd be ballot questions. But in the primary election, the school board election, let me also just say, Diane said you either vote Republican or you vote Democrat. No, in the primary, you can vote unaffiliated, and you get an unaffiliated ballot that is only the school board. And what we're telling voters who think that they're Democrats but are really Republicans, or think they're Republicans and they're really Democrats, according to our registration, is we're telling them that they can't vote in the one race that everyone gets to vote in. So as far as how many times this happened, I would have to defer to Boris, and it would probably require some research. But I will say that we've dealt with problems that have many fewer people involved than the wrong party ballot in primary elections. You know, we deal with problems when we have a particular problem in a particular polling place. We set boundaries for precincts. We frequently deal with problems that involve fewer people. I don't think the fact that there's not that many people, we're only preventing, 100 people from voting in the school board election. Well, that's 100 people that we're preventing from voting for the school board election for something that has nothing to do with the school board election. The school board election is a nonpartisan race, and every voter has the opportunity to vote in that race. Daniel, then Kina, then Diane, and then back to you, Al. Yeah. Okay.
Up to a total of,
So, if I can just.
Can you unmute your mic?
Yes, yeah, please turn on your microphone.
Just to shortly expand on the number that was provided. So we had 722 voters who, by election judges' read of the application, voted wrong party in the primaries. Out of that number, the research was done on the staff level, 659 were rejected.
why were the others not rejected?
Because most likely there was an error how the election judge read the record, and by the staff research here in the office confirmed that actually the voter voted the right ballot.
So those ballots were accepted in full
for the ones that the research showed that they were entitled to vote that party ballot, the one they said that they wanted. And that was how many? That was roughly, it sounds like 60 some.
Accepted in full is 60.
Okay. So there were 60 instances where the election judges made a mistake. There were 600 some.
It could be also like on our end that we maybe didn't see that document was submitted with the voter signatures to change the party, and we didn't do it.
Okay.
But I'm saying some kind of error was somewhere.
And then there were 600 some where we rejected them in full, where if they voted in the school board, and a lot of voters, there's a significant drop off for the school board, but there could be 500 of them that whose school board votes were thrown out.
Yeah, I mean, that's the number I would like.
659. That's the number of rejected.
Okay, I'm going to come back to you, Diane.
I'm going to forget it.
Write it down. Daniel, then Kina, then Diane, then Al.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think we have the data now. We have the number. That's a significant number.
Regardless of
regardless of where the error is from, I just believe that from my prison, this is an enfranchisement.
We need to make sure that we're not doing
we need to make sure that we're not throwing any votes out.
In other words,
if it happens when someone votes
wrong legislative district, and we are accepting all the Mr. President, correct me if I'm wrong, we will accept the other offices that they voted on,
if they vote, if they go to, let's say, different,
That is correct. Anything that they are eligible to vote on, like county races, state races, or other districts in which they are part of. For example, they might be in the same council district, but not in the same legislative district. Their legislative district vote would be thrown out, the council district would be counted.
but in this case, let's say there's an error, regardless of where the error comes from, but because it's party affiliated, none of the offices that they voted on will be accepted. Is that correct?
That is correct as it currently stands.
Yeah, I see that regardless of where the error is from, but we should be able to count if that ballot is marked properly for that office that is nonpartisan. I believe we should be able to accept that ballot. That's my comment.
Thank you, Daniel. Ina, then Diane, then Alex.
Thank you, Mr. President. So it's just really a quick question that speaks more to data collection. If we were in a position to accept those ballots as you had suggested, how do we track the parties that have voted for Board of Education? And I asked that question because a lot of the candidates, and I would see foreseeably this office as well, would have that information to conduct research of some kind, whether it be for campaigns or some other instance. So I just wanted to know on the back end, if the people who are selecting for a board of education are doing so in the presence of not having the right party at the time, how do we collect the right party later on?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Do you?
I think she's asking about what are the instances where someone actually voted in the school board race and the ballot was rejected, right?
Essentially, yes.
I don't think we have that data because if it's rejected in full, I don't think we open the envelope. So we don't know. I can tell you that we could probably provide you data on the percentage of voters overall who don't vote for the school board race because there is a significant drop off. I have a figure in my head, but I don't really want to provide it because it's literally just in my head and I don't know why.
Right.
But I don't think we have data because if it's rejected in full, we don't open the ballot. If we were to accept it in part, we would have very good data because we would only be duplicating the part that is accepted. We don't duplicate the parts that are rejected.
Okay, so then to that point, if we are duplicating the parts that are accepted, in this case, Board of Education, the demographic information, or rather party information about the voter at the time, how will that be collected afterwards?
Are you asking how will we know whether they are in the correct party or not?
Correct, afterwards.
That'll depend on the voter.
I think it depends on what their records say. I think what happens is that if staff is investigating someone's party affiliation, they go back to the record to see what kind of registration information they have from the voter where they indicate their party affiliation. So, for example, if someone went online and changed their party affiliation, I assume that we would be able to find the date and time that they did so.
Right.
But we still might have a situation where a voter says, I didn't do that. I don't know if we've ever had a situation like that, but I suppose it's possible.
David.
Yeah.
So when you fill out that provisional ballot application and it says what ballot do you want to vote? And you in essence are changing your party affiliation when you complete that. So in the next upcoming election, that does change your party affiliation.
Yeah, I do not recall the text from the top of my head, but the provisional application text literally describes that voting for the party that you are not currently registered with will lead you not to have your ballot counted. However, marking that new party will change your voter registration, party affiliation after the election. So two things happen, and the voter signs, confirms with their signature that they went through the application, provided the information, and actually read it. Instructions.
Now, whether they
There you
remember
go.
that,
That's-
whether they actually did, et cetera. For example, if you give a new address on a ballot question petition, the state, at least, I don't know if they still have this, but they had a bylaw that said that you give a different address, they'll change your voter registration to the address you give on the petition.
But they'll throw out your signature.
I don't know. Do they throw out a signature for a change, of address? I think,
I thought they
I think that's
did.
in lieu of throwing out a signature. I think they're assuming that you're changing your address. But what happens is that sometimes people on a petition, they don't want to put their home address, they put their business address, and suddenly they're registered to vote at the business address, which of course is not possible because you have to have a residential address.
Is that,
You registered at. The voters don't know that. The voters don't know when they're signing a petition that they're changing, that they're changing their address. My opinion. I mean, maybe there's somebody out there who knows. I certainly didn't know until I was on the board.
So when you sign a petition, yes, that does update your address. And of course, the problem is that for charter amendments, there's such a long period of time for collecting signatures that, quite frankly, when the staff does the work, they can tell that the address that they gave is a new address, and what was, let me say this, that they have moved to a new address after they've signed the position. So in essence, the problem is that then if you follow the state's logic, you're moving them back to their old address. I think that makes sense. So that's a procedural problem.
My point was simply that the fact that we have these regulations or that we have these things written on these forms does not necessarily mean that the voters know that. And I'd love to educate people, about that. But we have had instances where, where people's registrations were wrong, and we've had instances where voters were wrong. My own view is that I don't want to assume anything. I don't want to assume that the voters are wrong, and I don't want to assume that the voters are right. I want to look at the information, the data, and figure it out.
Question for Mr. President? I can wait if you want.
I'd be happy to.
Well, let me just see if Tina's done.
Oh,
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Regarding my question, I think it speaks more to the application of this if we were in fact to start to accept ballots that at least had information for the Board of Education. But I can put that aside at this time because I think most of my question was answered.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you, Kina. Diane.
I'll defer. Where is it? Oh, I'm on.
You're
Yeah.
on.
I thought, did you have a quick question on that point, or should I launch into just my?
Well, let me just ask you, Mr. President, do you recall when, because I was on the board when this problem came up with the MBA. Did we learn of this problem in time for the research to be done so that their provisional ballot could be accepted in full?
I believe that we accepted them and got our hands slapped by the State Board of Elections for accepting. But I hope I'm not confusing two different things, and I'd have to ask Kevin if he remembers. But it is a very frustrating thing to be faced with the question of whether to accept a ballot that should be valid in every way, except for the fact that our registry is wrong. But I believe that our instruction from the state was follow the registry.
And if you find out later that it was changed without their consent, then there is no, the ultimate remedy that they would want is to vote the full party ballot to which they were entitled.
Agreed.
And they don't get to do that even if we change it this way.
Agreed. But what they would get to do if we change it this way is to have their vote for Board of Education count, because their vote for Board of Education has nothing to do with which party ballot they receive. Literally nothing to do with it. They get the same Board of Education ballot no matter what party affiliation they have. Okay, Diane.
Okay, thank you. I think given what Boris said, what Kevin said about the subset of the subset, I am bolstered in my opposition to making the change because we don't know how many, we don't know how small the problem is, as has been admitted. We don't have the data on how often the school board race was affected. And I want to touch on, I take exception to the characterization that we are throwing out their votes. I think that may be an emotional persuasion, not intentional, but we are not doing anything. We are following the law, and I would like to continue following the law until it is a big enough problem to try changing the law. If it is such a subset of a small group of the vote, and we don't even know, I think it is a dangerous precedent to establish, to begin making exceptions in what has traditionally been the primary rule of, well, of closed primaries. And that is that you vote your party's ballot. And there was one other thing. That I guess that's, no, I'll leave it at that. I think everyone knows my arguments. Thank you.
May I ask a question?
Go ahead,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is this in fact a law?
No.
No, I'm asking Kevin.
It's the state board's interpretation that if you vote the wrong party ballot, that the entire ballot, that's their interpretation of what the section says.
What does the statute actually say?
Oops.
And I'm running out of battery too. You don't happen to have one for a Macintosh? Can I borrow it for a minute?
I haven't even looked at my battery.
I love the cooperation we have at this table.
Thank you.
I have to be replicated.
I hope this may not fit mine. My Mac may be too old.
Oh, wow. No, I think, yes, I don't have that one. That,
No, it does. fit
that's
mine.
the new, this is the new one.
I think this does. fit.
Having nothing like asking for instant advice.
Yeah.
David,
Yeah, I would have offered mine, but mine's the old.
Thank you. You'll charge up quick.
While Kevin is,
Well, yeah, let me look.
while Kevin is looking at that, I want to
We said it all.
disagree with just about everything Diane just said. We do know how large the problem is, not how small the problem is. We just learned that there are 700 people whose votes were affected.
But we didn't establish
Excuse me,
that was.
I have the floor. We know that there's 700 people, and it's a little bit of a circular argument to say we don't know how many voted in the school board race when the very rule that we are talking about prevents us from finding out how many people voted in the school board race because we can't open the envelopes. So we are required to reject them in full and not know that information. So if you want to have an argument that you'll absolutely never have to change, just prevent us from opening those envelopes and we'll never know how many school board races are affected. We do know that a certain percentage of the population votes for school board. It is not zero. It is a majority of county residents, not everyone, but there are hundreds of ballots for school board that are not being counted. And we are throwing away their votes because they are eligible to vote in this race, no matter what their party affiliation is. They are the closed primary is not in any way jeopardized. Diane, you and I have had a conversation. In fact, we even had a conversation that was captured on virtually during the canvas, where we were talking about how both of us favor the closed primary. It was even commented upon by someone, I believe on Twitter, that they heard us talking about the closed primary. I believe in the closed primary. I don't think this has anything to do with the closed primary. This has to do with allowing people, regardless of their party affiliation, to vote in a race that they are allowed to vote in. And I'm not exactly sure, you've used the phrase dangerous precedent twice. I don't think we're making exceptions to the closed primary. The closed primary doesn't affect a nonpartisan race. A nonpartisan race, by definition, it's the same race. It is the very same candidates. All the ballots are added together. It is in no way injuring the closed primary. There are other proposals about primaries that are that would change the closed primary. This is not one. I think that we are, we're not talking about 3 votes. We're talking about hundreds of votes. And in a school board election, and particularly a primary election, where there could be many candidates for one position, a few hundred votes could be the difference. And you all may remember, those of you who were on the board before, that we did have an election countywide that was decided by 32 votes in the last election. So several hundred votes, we can compare it any way you want, but we have at least 20 times the margin of victory in the Democratic primary for county executive of ballots that are affected by this problem. So, and of course, if those 32 votes had gone differently, there would have been a different person as county executive. It would have made a big difference. Similarly, if the school board races are close and these votes make a difference, the voters have a right to, to control the school system through their vote for school board. And the fact that they request the wrong party ballot should not take away that right.
I think
The state's rationale is under 11303 D2 little I. The local board determines that the individual who casts the provisional ballot is not qualified to vote that provisional ballot.
Say that again, please.
The local board determines that the individual who casts the provisional ballot is not qualified to vote that provisional ballot. And the state board's position still is, I think, that if you're a Republican and you ask for a Democratic provisional ballot, you're not otherwise qualified to vote that ballot.
So I'll just, my last comment, or hopefully my last comment, which is that Diane made reference to following the law. That's exactly what we're talking about. And if the law somehow is subject to an interpretation that disenfranchises the voters from their vote for school board, I'm talking about changing the law. No one is talking about not following the law. We follow the law. And we always follow the law. But if the law says that by choosing the Republican provisional ballot and you're a registered independent, that you lose your opportunity to vote for school board, I personally would change that law. And that is what I'm proposing in this proposal. Anyone else want to say anything? Okay, let's take a vote on provision number 9. All those in favor, please raise your hand. There are 4 in favor. All those opposed? 1 opposed. Ms. Dillon opposed. Okay, that one passes. We will now move on to the next one. Number 10. Okay, number 10, eliminate the rejection of ballots for identifying marks under 16206A1 of the election article, which reads, a person may not place any distinguishing mark on the person's own or another person's ballot for the purpose of identifying the ballot. So this has been interpreted to require us and other boards to reject ballots where voters sign their name, which usually has been either voters telling us they made a mistake on their ballot and trying to say, I'm the one who changed this. And we've had an instance where somebody wrote us a note in which they apologized for their inability to keep their pencil mark or pen mark within the circle, and they were apologizing for their poor eyesight. We in Montgomery County have done our best to accept ballots under as many circumstances as we can, especially if the voter initials have changed because they haven't used their full name. But under the current statute, that is subject to debate and to interpretation. So we could try to change the interpretation of for the purpose of identifying the ballot.
What did you say was subject to debate, Mr. President?
What's subject to debate is whether someone has placed a distinguishing mark on their ballot for the purpose of identifying the ballot. So in other words, the person who writes to us and says, sorry that my circles aren't in the, that my markings aren't in the circle. Are they doing that in order to identify their ballot? And that is the interpretation that under the law we are required to interpret. If I make a mistake on my ballot, cross it out, make another one with an arrow pointed to it. We've all seen this in Canvas a million times. People tell us in different ways. And I put my initials next to it in order to say, as many people do when you make a change on a document, in order to say, yeah, this was me, I made this change. Are they doing it to identify the ballot? This provision was designed for people who wanted to identify their ballot to someone who was going to pay them for voting. And we have, it is so hard under the current system for someone to do that and collect on it and prove it was their ballot and prove how they voted, especially since, we can black out people's names when we consider the ballot, and we do. But to throw the person's vote out again because of their lack of knowledge, and I'll say, I have been Johnny One Note about including in the sample ballot the phrase "sign the oath, not the ballot." And
if you sign the ballot, it may be rejected.
Right. And I'd like to say it over and over again, but we still have people who do it. We still have people who, particularly some of our older voters, who are used to doing it that way because if you are in the electronic age, you can correct your errors without having to cross it out and initial it. But again, those voters, I don't think should have their ballot thrown out simply for that reason, and that is the reason for this particular proposal. Alex.
And I had my hand up too, but whatever.
I'm sorry, Diane. I didn't see my computer. Okay, go first. Okay, Diane, then Alex.
Yeah, I just, I oppose this. Thank you very much for your well-reasoned comments. I oppose it, however, because similar to the first exception to well-established procedure, I think changing this, excuse me, for once again, minority of the total voters, I would like to first know how many ballots are affected by this. I am troubled by the notion of intruding by this change on what is a bright line, well-established historical tradition of the sanctity of the anonymity of the vote. And I am certainly empathetic to the emotional arguments you've made vis-a-vis the people invalidating their otherwise valid vote. But I think there are less restrictive ways to do this that wouldn't affect the voting process at large, the tradition and the sentiment at large for the anonymity of the vote. And that is to take a robust effort first to substitute this proposal with a request that we go, as I've said in many board meetings, big and bold in our warning and instructions to the voters that would get to this subset of the total votes cast who make this mistake. I think it is a slippery slope to start accepting ballots that have got names on them. And I'm not worried about people getting paid. I'm worried about people just getting coerced. And there are, I mean, I don't want to go historically into remote examples of where people are compelled to vote and to vote the right way, either overtly or covertly. But I think this is just mucking with a age-old tradition that has got very serious and weighty reasons for supporting the anonymity of the vote. And I will just point out, for instance, the zeal with which during the canvass, people are instructed properly to turn the ballot, to turn the names over as soon as we begin looking at ballots and canvassing. And then Alex was after me. I'm not taking your, I'm sorry. I jumped in front of him and I was trying to be,
That's okay.
I was trying to be nice.
You jumped in front of him only because you put your hand up before he did.
Right.
And I didn't see it. So,
Okay.
anyway, Alex is next, then Daniel.
Thank you, David.
So, Mr. President, I think this would be a very far-reaching change in the state law. And I'm not sure that we as a board know enough or have the capacity to really be advocating for this kind of a policy change, especially since we're not held hearings. But as I listened to our worthy president's remarks, I detected a certain subtlety in his proposal that was not reflected in the actual text. And he will correct me if I'm wrong, but I discerned that, and I hadn't even thought about it this way, that perhaps our worthy president was suggesting that there may be distinguishing marks that were not made for the purpose of identifying the ballot, and there are other distinguishing marks that are made for that purpose. And that the problem we're trying to solve are the distinguishing marks that were made not for the intent that's under the statute, or for a different intent that perhaps is understandable. And if that is the problem we're trying to solve, then there may be a narrower way to do this, or perhaps we already have authority to decide as a board that this was not made for the impermissible purpose of the statute. It was made for a different purpose and therefore acceptable, and we can do that without legislative change.
Well, let me say that there's a number of us who are lawyers around this table, and we all know that having to prove something is sometimes difficult. And if we have to prove what the purpose of the voter was, you're going to have one idea. Diane might have a different idea. Ami might have a third idea. I might have a fourth idea, and so on. We might all have different ideas as to what the voter was thinking based on our own experience. I also don't know, and this might be a question for Boris or Kevin, to what extent the state dictates what, how we have to interpret that provision. I did mean to suggest that I am yet to I mean, maybe we do want to get a better sense as to what are the examples of the identifying mark that people really are worried about. Because what I remember from almost every occasion when we've had an identifying mark, and we have a few every election, is just sad stories of people who really didn't know what they were doing, but made it difficult for us to.
But not someone who wanted the board president to know this is how I vote.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
Right,
but
right.
are-
And now, if somebody were to send a ballot that says, "Hi, David, this is my
who are we
ballot,"
to decide?
you know, that would be different. Or depending on the voter, they might be saying, "Hi, I want to put someone else on the board." But whatever the case, I mean, we haven't had that, you know, we haven't had that situation. What I'm trying to suggest is that it may be that this is a relic of the past. And that is, you know, because we have not encountered, at least in my experience here, and, you know, there's a number of us who've been here for, you know, different periods of time. We haven't encountered, for lack of a better phrase, an identifying mark with a corrupt purpose.
How would we know?
Well, if it was a corrupt purpose, I'd like you to explain how it would work and how someone would have seen the ballot if they weren't a member of this board or a random canvasser at a table. Because who else sees those ballots? In order for that to happen, they have to, I mean, what happens is that the ballot comes to us. The voter's identity is no, it's not compromised. Contrary, no, what we do is we redact it. So we see it.
Yeah.
But
It's compromised to us.
it's compromised to us only because when we show it to the public, we have a redacted version that gets shown to the public. So for example, if you're a candidate in the race, you know, you don't get to see it.
That's right.
So if you promised somebody that you were going to vote a certain way and you wanted them to see it, I'm not sure how you could even do it.
The only way you can do it is to show it to them before you put it in the envelope.
Or to give it to them when they come to your house to collect it for the drop box, right? Similar.
Thank you.
Well, if you give them your already filled out ballot.
Yeah.
Correct.
And then if they don't have
But then,
to put
yeah,
an identifier.
yeah, I was gonna say, why would you sign your ballot in that circumstance?
Yeah.
To give people proof of your corrupt intent by, you know, putting it on the ballot, you wouldn't need to. You would just say, "Here's my ballot. Watch me put it in the symbol."
Or you've just purchased the security, whatever. I mean, we're talking remote, but that's what happens when you start chipping away at age-old tradition.
All right, well, let me say, I'm pretty sure Maryland has never required IDs for voting. But I'm also pretty sure that if I were to propose that today, you would vote for it, even though it's an age-old tradition in Maryland that we don't use ID.
But that doesn't.
It's exactly the same thing. You have to decide whether we're going to support something simply because it's the way we've been doing it. And I think we would agree that there are occasions when the way we've been doing it is not necessarily the way we should do it. But the fact that we've been doing it that way does not by itself justify continuing to do it that way. We change lots of things. And the state changes lots of things that we don't even control. You know, the fact that it's been done in an age-old way, like I said, in Maryland, I don't believe it's ever been a requirement to show an ID to vote. And I'm pretty sure that if that were proposed, you'd be for it.
Well, Mr. President, what I'm.
You're blurring.
There may be good reasons why this should be retained, that eliminating it might cause unintended consequences, that there may be a narrower problem that legitimately cries out for resolution, that this would be over-inclusive or overcompensating.
Let me just say, and I'm going to come to you, David. Let me just say, we're at the very early stage here. This is a group of proposals that go to legislators who can decide what they're going to introduce and what they're not. They can come to us, they can say, "What do you think? What's the problem? What are you trying to solve? What are the complications?" I guarantee you, we will not be the only people they talk to. So, you know, if they know someone in another part of the state where this is a huge problem, you know, they'll find them. Or if they have a public hearing on the bill, you know, if it gets to that point, they'll find them. But from our perspective, what we've had is additional time for the board to have to consider ballots and throw them out. And with a very sad story for many of them, I don't remember exactly how many, a handful every election. And that's with a reminder in the sample ballot to, you know, sign the oath, not the ballot. And so, anyway,
That's my perspective on, if it's over inclusive,
we will find out.
Daniel.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm gonna be brief. If I understand correctly, number 10 will most likely reduce the board's debate on which, or the voters' intent on certain votes or markings on the ballot.
That's correct. Number 10 we would not have it would not come to us in all likelihood.
There you go.
And I guess that'll be a question for Kevin. But I believe that if the identified mark were not to be a reason to throw the ballot out, we'd never see it.
So we never see it. The voter would be the one voting exactly the way they want to vote. And it wouldn't come to the board. Right. So the only reason why it would come to the board is because of there's a marking there that we would have to debate.
It would
The
have
intent of the voter. Is that correct?
the ballot would have to be adjudicated.
Not if we change the law.
Well, the machine wouldn't count it.
So we duplicate it.
Well,
That's where, there you go.
you could have a voter intent issue.
Yeah.
A voter
You could have voter intent still be the issue as to why they signed or they initial.
Sure.
It depends on what they said.
So so in other words, the proposal that the president has put forward, number 10, would reduce the likelihood for where these ballots would not have to come to the board, where we have to make or get a debate or even do a debate about the intent of the voter, because it will be where the voter basically, regardless if they make a mistake and put an arrow and puts, let's say, their initials, right? It will still be counted.
There's a good chance in the situation that you're describing where somebody puts an arrow or something that it would come to us as a voter intent issue.
We'd have to still review.
So there's a,
It would
you know,
be adjudicated.
but if somebody were suppose instead of that they have a completely perfectly filled out ballot and they sign their name to it. That would not necessarily, if the law were changed, that would not necessarily have to come to us because there would be no reason for it to come to us because the ballot itself, it would be duplicated, but it wouldn't require.
Wait, can you just say that again?
Okay. Let's suppose I fill out a ballot, I fill it out perfectly, I then sign my name to it.
Okay.
Okay, I submit it, it comes to a Canvas table at the Canvas. All they have to do in order to allow it to go through the machine is to duplicate it. They don't need the board's involvement because the ballot is perfectly filled out. You know what it says. You just have to have a version of it that doesn't have my scribble on it.
It'll scan with the signature.
It might even scan with the signature.
But
Then
they
my-
don't
then my-
scan
my-
with
my follow-up to that
markings,
would be-
right?
My follow-up to that would be,
So my
so my
follow-up,
follow-up to that would be,
How
how many of those do we get where are just signed signatures, right? They're not perfectly.
Not enough to change the law,
Not very much.
not enough to muck with tradition.
Yeah, probably not more than 10.
Well,
So we
so for
wanna-
me, I mean, every yeah.
So change the whole system for that.
10 of election cycle.
So 10 an election cycle, and I think we all agree that, well, let me speak for myself, that every vote should count. If this will allow, right, where there's a mistake of a voter signing, and instead of, we will have to debate would that be a voter intent, when they sign the ballot, as opposed to the envelope?
The signature alone would not be a voter intent issue.
No.
Okay.
If they were to say, I don't know, these are my choices,
Mhm.
probably not a voter intent issue. If they were to say, I made a mistake, then it would probably come to us.
So
Let me ask another question.
And my hand is still.
can I wrap up
Go
this
ahead.
call?
Yeah, Daniel first. Now I have Daniel, Diane, Kevin has his hand up, and then I'll come to you.
And thank everyone for really chiming in, because to me, I wanted to understand, you know, like how are we going to, how do we make sure the decision is in the hands of the voters and not in the hands of the board?
Wait, how can you, I didn't hear.
the goal is that we need to make sure the decision of voting is in the hands of the voters.
Yes.
And not in the hands of the board making a decision on if we're able to, make recommendations on reducing in terms of the mistakes that a voter might make, or whereby in this case, the one that was just explained by the president, which is just by signing the ballot itself, that perfectly marked ballot, but it was signed. And as a result of that, the board will have to basically look at that ballot to make a decision.
Well, it would have to be because it violates the statute. It's not a.
No, not
Not
if you look at it from the point of view of saying, was it for a purpose of identifying the ballot?
Well, it could be.
So I agree with Ami on this one.
Subset, meaning that they were presuming that all identifying marks would necessarily be for the purpose.
And that's why,
Except that we could also argue that by including those words, that they did make a subset. Why would they include those words?
that is correct. So that's my thinking, and as a result of that, I just feel like this kind of, put the decision in the hands of voters, even if there's a mistake made, whereby we can definitely recognize the mistake, but not eliminate the decision of the voter of marking their ballot, and just happen to be that because they sign it all of a sudden, according to you, Alex, will have to, and you're right, that's the law.
Do the people who favor this, would you want your vote to count if the person signed it with the intent of identifying the ballot?
To whom?
To anyone.
So based on the scenario we just gave, the hypothesis here is that it's a perfectly marked ballot. The only mistake is that they signed the ballot.
And the only
Well, it may not have been a mistake.
Yeah, but the only people that would see that would be the two canvassers that canvass.
That are inspecting the ballot. And I agree with Ami that we should be able to accept
And
that
that's
ballot.
random.
But there's no way to know. Did they do it on purpose? Was it a mistake? Does it violate the law? That's what happens when you change it.
I believe Diane was next, then Kevin.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate that I really think that I think Daniel said 10 people. We ended up finding out this affects 10 people. And yeah, for election cycle, we're going to change it. Sink the precious, inviolable principle that this nation has had forever of the anonymity of the vote. I just think.
Diane, these are people who have themselves taken the anonymity away. This is not somebody.
By violating
This is not somebody
rules.
who's looking over their shoulder. This is somebody who themselves have taken away that anonymity. I'm not sure I understand why you think this would lead to a further impingement on the right of voters to cast their private ballots. This is someone, this is if I sign my name myself. No one made me.
We don't know that.
Exactly. That's how coercion and subversion happens. It doesn't start on day one. It starts with the smallest, maybe unintended consequence, which opens up a window. Like I said, I could give you remote examples, countries around the world. We're not there yet, but this is the beginning of opening a window on what has been a ironclad sanctity of the anonymity of the vote. I think for 10 people to be putting a nose under the camel's tent with this is not only dangerous, but not only extremely short-sighted, but dangerous. And I do want to take exception to the notion that every vote counts. Well, I agree with that totally, but also if the wrong votes are counted, then somebody is disenfranchised. So for every action, there's a reaction. And to start making exceptions with age-old tradition that has served us so well, look around the world, and see the exceptions to it, I don't think 10 people who have been instructed not to do something through mistake or unintentionally are enough of a force to change the law. So, I mean, that's it for me. I mean,
Kevin.
thank you.
So we all attended the biannual conference meeting, and we had our little lawyer breakout session. And one of the things that was emphasized was that they are trying to strive for uniformity and consistency across the state. And they asked for suggestions. And I said to them that if you want to be helpful, why don't you define what is a distinguishing mark for the purpose of identifying a ballot? Because I guarantee you that if you were to ask every lawyer in this room, they're providing different advice. Because is identifying the ballot someone who's got good penmanship and you can clearly identify their name? Or is it lousy penmanship like mine, where you couldn't figure out whether there's anything on it? It looks like two G's. So is that identifying the ballot? Someone initials there are a gazillion KKs in the world. Is that an identifying mark? If someone goes ahead and puts a little, Shriner Hospital mailing label on there that you could easily peel off, is that an identifying mark? And so my point is that the state has provided very little guidance on how this is to be interpreted. And I just would say that the statute itself right now is not well written. So
it isn't unique in that respect.
no.
Okay.
And that's not commenting on the merits one way or the
No,
other.
no,
But I
no,
did want to say I did raise this. Yeah,
We-
we were at the state board meeting. I
The
said,
only,
look.
the only comment that I heard, Kevin, was the statute is not well written. Well, yeah, no, I was reaction. My reaction was, sounds like it needs to be either amended or deleted. But anyway, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say.
Turn on your mic.
How do I turn on? All right, just a moment. Turn on my mic.
Yeah. there you go.
In light
Put it on
of
the
that
damn ballot,
comment,
don't sign it.
do you believe that
meant to
the
say
board
that.
has discretion to estimate the purpose of a distinguishing mark should one come before it in the canvas? Because we do have the right to determine voter intent. So would you argue that we also have the right to determine whether it was purposeful for that purpose? And if so, then I'll be happy with leaving the statement in.
I think you do now because you have no guidance whatsoever, but I think the state board is going to provide guidance on what they view.
Well, if they ever provide guidance,
Yeah.
we can respond. But
So
okay.
it'd be similar to like what constitutes a vote, that little
Mhm.
the little pamphlet you all
Yeah.
have. I think.
Which we sometimes follow and sometimes don't.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I think you do have the discretion, so.
Okay.
Any other comments on number 10?
Yeah.
Diane?
In my iteration and summation, I forgot to mention that I think, again, a more prudent move to address this issue right now, considering 10 people are being affected, is to what they have printed on the ballot, do not sign. There are ways to go around this without impacting a sacred right. Okay, thank you.
Okay. I'll just sum up by saying that I think it's a little extreme to call this proposal dangerous. I think this is a very practical proposal. I do think that every vote counts. I do think that many of these situations, if not all of them, I think maybe all of them, are very innocent situations that put us in a bind every time we face them. And this is an effort to try to have a uniform system that essentially, as Daniel pointed out, lessens the possibility that someone will actually see what these markings say and will count them just like any other ballot. So I also take exception to the idea that this somehow will affect the anonymity of the vote. We're talking about people who have disclosed their own names. I feel very strongly about the anonymity of the vote. Diane and I have had that conversation privately on a number of occasions. And I don't think this will lead to anything that would cause a problem for that. So anyway, anyone else? Keena.
Thank you, Mr. President. We've all had some time to hear the thoughts of each other's colleagues. My question actually, Diane, is to you, and just this is a point of clarification for me. Is the concern that in the future, someone may interpret what we're doing today as an avenue to accept things that are, I'm really looking for the really most appropriate and concise word for this, that go beyond our role of interpreting voter intent. So the way I look at it is that this opportunity here that's being presented, and like Daniel said as well earlier on, that this will lessen our involvement in deciding voter intent, which I think arguably is what everyone wants us to really be in a part of. So I guess my question is to you, in the future, is it that you're concerned that our role of determining voter intent will be used incorrectly or something to that effect? Because that is ultimately what I'm seeing this as, because it's not so much just the voter as much as it is we are the ones who are ultimately going to be deciding that vote. And so that's where my concern comes in after hearing from all of you. I hope that makes sense to my question.
I hope I'm not
Unmute yourself.
Thank you, Keena. I hope I'm not misunderstanding the question, but my concerns go beyond our interpretation of voter intent. I think I don't quite understand the question. And my comments are meant to address kind of thematically the danger of allowing signatures or identifying marks to a voter's choice in candidates or issues. I think I might be missing something, but I'm more concerned with the dangerous precedent of allowing, I think I don't want to confuse you by trying to answer something that, it's not really,
well, if I may,
discretion that I'm worried about.
Right. I guess to my point, I'm making it a little different. What I heard was that we are concerned about the inputs rather than the outputs, right? So the input of the vote and how that may look versus the output of our determination of what the vote is actually meant to be. So that's really what my question is in this moment of what we could be proposing right now is the concern about the input of the votes, how it's marked versus the output, what we receive and how we interpret it to mean for their decisions. I'm thinking about what that future could look like for us, because ultimately, no matter how they've marked it, and please correct me if I'm wrong, colleagues, but it's gonna end up across our tables or desk anyways. And so ultimately,
only if there's a question of voter intent.
okay. And in so many of these,
if they sign their name under current law, it will come before.
Okay. And so that point then becomes about the output, right? Our decisions. And so is there maybe a concern about the corruption of our decisions going forward if we were to have this in place?
No, I'm more concerned about breaking precedent with the idea of the anonymity. Because if somebody puts their name on it, I truly believe there's no way for us to ever divine in the event that this were a coerced ballot, or if somebody just made a mistake. I don't want to be in that position of deciding, because God forbid it's been under coercion, and the fact that allowing a signature on a ballot makes it an acceptable vote. As I've
I
said,
think you are in the position of deciding, because the law very clearly says that we're supposed to decide whether it's for the purpose of identifying itself.
Yeah.
So I think that under current law, you're in the position of deciding. I think under what I'm proposing, you wouldn't be.
That's correct.
Because under what I'm proposing,
okay,
it would simply, it would be like somebody, it would be like somebody who has a pen mark, a stray mark on the ballot.
got it.
But we've always assumed when we've considered these things, have we not, Mr. President, that it was for the impermissible purpose?
No, I don't think that's true.
We've never said that it was not, that it was a permissible purpose and we accepted the
Well,
ballot because it had a signature.
It depends.
Yeah.
We have definitely accepted ballots where people initial crossouts that they have made. I don't know that we've accepted ballots where people have signed their full name. I think that is
we have, and that's
I think that is the distinction that we've made. But I will say that whether I put my initials or my full name, and we have had people who have signed their full name to their corrections on their ballots. I'm not sure that we can actually say that because they put their full name, that is for the purpose of identification. Now, maybe if you're, if you have my name, it's pretty clear. But if your name is John Smith, you really haven't identified yourself. And that's obviously not fair either. But I don't know that we have a hard and fast rule that we have always followed. And I think what Kevin just told us is we don't have to have a hard and fast rule that we follow, that we have very little guidance from the state. We have a state law that tells us what to do. We have 3 new members of a 7-member board of canvassers. And, we'll take them up as they come. My thought was to try and have a rule that applies across the board and not have it come down to, which ones of us are working the canvas that day. So, are people ready for a vote? Okay, so this is on number 10. All those in favor, please raise your hand. There are 3 in favor. All those opposed? Okay, there are 2 opposed. Ms. Hober and Ms. Dillon opposed. And Mr. Karoma, Ms. Anyman, and myself in favor. Number 10 passes. I do not have anything else on my list. Alex, did you want to add anything to the list? I realize that
it is a late hour.
Yes, but on the other hand, you did seem to have something you wanted to say, which I thought was worth saying.
Well, that is the nicest thing that anyone has said to me all day, Mr. President. But,
sorry about your day.
But no, I appreciate you recognizing me for this. I'll be very brief. I think that my understanding of current law is that we are not allowed to change the number of either buildings or precincts or polling places that we currently have. And I think it's not a good idea for the state to be hamstringing our flexibility on that regard, because there might be good reasons to either reduce or increase depending on the usage and popularity of the other voting methods that we're seeing. And to lock us in
Right.
236 or whatever it is without change is not wise.
And I share that view. I'm trying to remember. I believe that the requirement is that we have at least as many as we had before. I don't know that we're required to have exactly what we had before. So, for example, if we did wanted to add 20 new polling places, I don't believe that the state law would stop us. On the other hand, when you make reference to the other methods of voting, meaning non-election day voting, the trend is definitely going in the other direction. And then the question becomes, if we said we wanted to have 200 instead of 230, should we be able to?
I think we should.
And I would agree with you that we are in a much better position to decide that than the legislature, you know, or the state board for that matter. But at the moment, I believe that we are stuck with the number from 2018. Is that correct, Boris?
2018, wow.
Now, 2018 was our last normal election.
Yeah, that's, yeah.
But it was also it was before the great increase in the popularity of mail-in balloting that 2020 clearly brought.
Oh, yeah.
And I believe it's also when did we add the three extra early voting locations? Was that in 2022 that we added White Oak and North Potomac?
Yeah, it was before.
Was it 2020?
And
Okay, so whatever the case, 2018 was before that as well. So basically, we're in a situation now where we have more places to vote early voting. We have more hours of early voting because we now are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. for 8 days in a row. And we also have more mail-in balloting. So is it your proposal, Alex, that we add to the list that there should not be a limit on the number in either direction? Up or down?
Correct.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that. Oh,
I have a question.
Okay. Well, if it's okay, Alex moved and Diane seconded.
did you want a second?
So,
I'll give it to Margie.
no, it's
Oh.
not. Seconding is not something you just pass across the table.
Well, I mean, it was a
The
draw.
chair
It was
decides
a-
who he heard, and I heard you.
Okay, sorry.
Okay. Okay.
We were looking at each other and
I'll
I
give Margie
felt,
some other gifts some other time.
I felt obliged to recognize the fact that.
Okay. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. Alex, do you have anything else you wanted to say on that point?
No.
Okay, Daniel.
Just for clarification, is there, again, this just came to me and I want to make sure I have clarification before saying my next statement. What triggers the addition of an early voting site? Because I remember doing my advocacy for that early
State
voting.
law.
That's right, but is it a population?
Yes.
Okay, and so, in other words, what Alex is proposing, I mean, even though.
It's not about early voting.
It was not about early.
It's about election day only.
Thank you for
Okay,
that.
okay.
I wanted to make sure. we're not
Yeah,
talking about-
no. We're not talking about taking away.
There may come a time when we need to have that conversation.
That's a slippery slope, that Diane keeps talking about, right? So, I yield back.
No. We're talking about, let me see if I can clarify this.
Sure,
Because
please
I
do.
understand there's a little bit of inside baseball going on there that I want to clarify. So, the state, in legislation, I believe now for 2 elections in a row, has added a provision that says that the number of election day polling places basically cannot be changed.
Cannot be reduced.
Cannot be reduced. And that came in response to an election official in another county who openly talked about moving to vote centers instead of election day polling places. And there are people in the legislature who don't think that's a good idea. And so I believe that is the origin of the legislative provision, but the legislative provision does not allow us to adapt to the changes in voting to the extent that we can. Now, a lot of the adaptation does require the legislature. Changing hours requires the legislature, changing the number of early voting sites, other than the one that is decided between the county governing body and us, requires the legislature. But up until now, the number of precincts, to my understanding, has been a local board decision. Other than we are stuck with the election districts, which we cannot change the boundaries of the election district. Aren't you impressed by how much I've learned in my time?
How long have you been on the board? No.
I understand. I understand. He shouldn't be too impressed. I've been here a while.
Kidding,
So,
kidding.
so anyway, but yeah, the election districts would require legislative change. The election districts are essentially the first numbers in the precincts. When the precinct is 4-1, 4-2, 4-3, they are in the fourth election district, just like the 13th election district. Those we can't change, but the precincts within them we can, except for this provision of state law. I'm suggesting that we urge the legislature to do away with.
Allow flexibility.
Allow flexibility. It does not mean Alex has not proposed to do away with any polling places.
Even in this current form, the chance this we'll ever see the light of day is nil.
Alex is taking this opportunity for free expression, and I am joining you in that opportunity because I don't think that the state legislature should be telling that to us. It's just way too
mucking in the weeds.
well, it's not even no, I wouldn't say it's Big Brother. I think it's kind of like not a very sharp tool. Okay, it's like they want to hit us over the head with the number of precincts, and of course if we that's not really the issue. The issue is that they want it to be convenient for voters to go to the polls. That's what they really want. And so we have to, I think there's lots of ways to address that. Anyway, so I personally, I'm favorably disposed towards Alex's motion.
Planning, not Big Brother.
Okay, Margie has her hand up. Which I just noticed. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I've been putting it up and down. I've been going through my thoughts, so
Yeah.
it's all right.
Feel free, by the way, to use your actual hand when you are sitting in this room.
You know,
I might actually see that. So, okay, go ahead.
Well, I also agree with this proposal. I think especially when trends in voting change, I think the local board of elections have like a better idea of what the number of voting day polling places might be based on resources. I think it makes more sense for it to be at the local board of elections than just to have a set number, because then we see so many changes, like who could predict things like the pandemic, or who can predict things like a trend in 5 years in voting. You can guess, but just having that set number 14, what does that say?
But again, we're not talking about the number of early voting sites. We are talking about only the number of election day polling places.
Okay, well, I make the same point with
Yes,
the election
yeah.
day polling.
Okay. I am not proposing, and I don't believe Alex is, and Alex and I have lived through the early voting wars. So
the scars to
understood. I am not proposing, and I don't believe that Alex is proposing to change the number of early voting sites. This proposal is strictly about election day.
It is indeed.
Only about election day. So anyway, okay. We're ready for a vote? Okay, all those in favor of Alex's proposal, raise your hand. It is unanimous. Congratulations, Alex. If you could do me a favor and send me like a brief description that I can add to the list, that would be great. Are there any other motions relating to the legislative list? We do not, because we divided the question and we have hit all the divisions that we used. So I believe that we are good to go if there are no other proposals. I will just tell you that what I plan to do is to take our list and to share it with the Montgomery County legislators who are either the chairs and vice chairs of the delegations or serve on the relevant committees. And we're lucky in that many of our members are also chairs or vice chairs of those relevant committees or subcommittees. And so we at least have a reasonably good chance that they'll read what we have to say.
Did they do anything beyond that?
Well, that's up to them. I mean, it's up to them, but by doing it now, the reason why we're doing it now and not later, the reason why we didn't put it off till December, the reason why we're here at this late hour is because I was told by one of them that mid-December is basically too late because they have already figured out which bills they're introducing and all that. So if we want to have any influence at all, this is the time to do it.
The votes on the proposals, I'm getting at, will these be forwarded as bipartisan and indicated those that are not bipartisan, or does that not matter?
I don't know whether it matters to the people I would be talking to because I don't want to speak for them. From my perspective, ordinarily what the board does is just send our proposals and doesn't necessarily talk about our internal discussions. But if you feel strongly that you want your views on the record with our legislators, I'm willing to consider that. I imagine though that others who voted in the majority might feel the same way. And so let me give that one.
It was just
Let me give that one some thought. Ordinarily, I wouldn't do that. Ordinarily, I would give them the list and I would say, this is what the board came up with. I would say that the vast majority of them are unanimous, and that I can even I'll figure out how to. I will not imply that you supported anything you did. So,
no, yeah.
Okay. Okay. The next thing on the agenda is the approval of the October 16th minutes. I sent you all.
Not true. You missed the list of future action.
Oh, you are right. You are right. And that's a very important list. This is also the Alan Banoff Memorial list because I shouldn't say memorial. The Alan Banoff, Alan is alive and well. So
Dead yet, right?
Yeah. Okay. So Ami is the last one to have seen him. But anyway, Alan was the one who suggested that we have an agenda item that is a list of the things that need to be followed up on. I know that sending the legislative list to the legislators is a follow-up item between us, probably more mine than yours, Boris, but we'll work that one out. What else do you got?
I have a action item to provide more explanation for the statistical details that are related to the website.
Yes.
So I'll go through it and see what we can get from the colleagues from TABS. And there was another item that was necessarily not for the board. I promised Mr. Fletcher I'm going to send him that state board explanation of the black belt. So I'll follow directly with him when we finish this meeting.
Okay. Was there anything else? Okay. I do know that we do have to send out a press release on the social media policy, but we can talk about that. Not just a press release, because if we only send it by press, that would kind of defeat the purpose. But we'll just call it we'll call it a news release. A news release. Yeah, we're going to change our social media policy and we're going to send it to a newspaper. Right? That's what we're, So anyway, all right. Are there any other follow-up items on the list? Okay. So now I believe I am correct that the next item on the agenda is the approval of the October 16th minutes.
Move we approve them as you edited them.
Okay.
I saw no errors.
Okay. Thank you. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, Daniel seconds it. All those in favor, please raise your hand. It is unanimous. Thank you. Okay, future meetings. We had contemplated moving the December meeting and then we ended up not moving the December meeting. So the December meeting will be on December 18th at 3 o'clock as it was scheduled. We do frequently cancel our December meeting. We are not able to do so this year because of the need to change the polling place that Boris referred to in his director's report at Shady Grove. It will be a virtual meeting, and it will probably be a short meeting, although I hesitate to say that because every time I say it, it doesn't happen. And also, I don't know what else will happen. let's assume for a moment that the state board will approve our early voting sites. If for some reason they don't, we may have to talk about that. I think that's very unlikely, but that's certainly a possibility. But the goal will be to have a much shorter virtual meeting on December the 18th. When we get into January and February, a reminder that the third Monday of January is a federal holiday, and the third Monday of February is a federal holiday. Third Monday of June, also a federal holiday. And I should add, more importantly, a state holiday, in other words, a holiday for our staff. So we will be meeting on the fourth Monday of January and the fourth Monday of February and so on. We'll go back to the third Monday when we get into March, when there is not a holiday on that day. And Lisa will give us all the dates next time. And are there any other matters that people want to bring up before we go to our closed session? Okay, we are adjourned from our open session.